This storm is just the beginning. Our family's survival depends on what we do next. We must find the truth.
He didn't reject me. Rejection would have been a mercy. He simply forgot I existed. Wiped me clean like I was never his Luna, never his mate, never the woman who wore his mark. But forgetting me was the worst mistake the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories ever made, because I spent 6 years building something he never saw coming. And now his 3 sons are standing at the pack house gates, and every single wolf in that territory is about to learn what happens when you erase the wrong woman. This is the story of the Luna who was erased, and the alpha who will burn the world to get her back. Welcome to Forgotten Luna. This story contains 14 chapters of revenge, redemption, and a love that refuses to die. Chapter 1. The rain in Vancouver was relentless. It wasn't the soft, romantic kind you see in movies. It was cold, gray, and unforgiving, the kind that soaked through your bones and reminded you that the world didn't care if you were warm or not. Aveline Marrowyn stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of her corner office, watching the city lights blur through the downpour. Her reflection stared back at her, sharp, elegant, untouchable. She barely recognized herself anymore. That was the point. Ms. Marrowyn? The voice belonged to Clara, her assistant, a young human woman with keen eyes and an unhealthy addiction to espresso. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. They're asking if you'll be presenting the Q4 projections yourself. Aveline didn't turn around. Tell them yes. And Clara? Yes, ma'am. Make sure security runs a full perimeter check tonight. I want every entrance monitored. Clara hesitated. Are we expecting trouble? Aveline's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Always. When Clara left, Aveline exhaled slowly, pressing her palm against the cool glass. She'd built this life from nothing. North Star Security Consulting, one of the most elite private firms in North America. Governments, corporations, high net worth individuals, they all came to her when they needed to disappear, to protect what mattered or to hunt what hunted them. Ironic, really. She'd learned how to hide in plain sight because she'd had no other choice. Her fingers moved unconsciously to the base of her neck, where a thin silver scar curved just below her hairline. The place where his mark used to burn. It didn't burn anymore. It was just empty. A sudden knock jolted her from her thoughts. Come in. The door opened, and in walked 3 figures that made her chest tighten every single time she saw them. Her sons. Riven entered first, tall for his age, dark-haired, with storm-gray eyes that saw too much. At 6 years old, he already moved like a predator. Silent, calculating, protective. Behind him came Selim, lighter in coloring, golden brown hair falling into eyes the color of amber. He carried a tablet under one arm and a book under the other. The thinker, the strategist, and finally, Theron, the smallest, but only in size. His grin was mischievous, his energy infectious. He had a way of lighting up every room he entered and talking his way out of every consequence. Mom, Riven said, his voice low and serious. We need to talk. Aveline turned fully, crossing her arms. You're supposed to be in the residence wing doing homework. We finished, Selim said, adjusting his glasses. 30 minutes ago. Then you should be playing. Or eating. Or literally anything other than sneaking into my office during business hours. Theron grinned. But this is important. Aveline raised an eyebrow. Define important. Riven stepped forward, pulling something from his jacket pocket. A photograph. Aveline's blood went cold. It was an old picture, faded, creased at the edges. A picture of her standing beside a man with ice blue eyes and jet black hair. His arm was around her waist. She was smiling. She barely remembered that version of herself. Where did you get this? She asked quietly. In the storage unit, Selim said. We were looking for the old gaming console and we found a box. There were letters too. And this. He held up a silver chain with a wolf's head pendant. Aveline's jaw tightened. That box was sealed. We're 6, not stupid, Riven countered. Who is he? Silence stretched between them. Aveline had always known this moment would come. She'd rehearsed it 100 times in her mind. But now, standing here with 3 pairs of eyes staring at her, eyes that looked so much like his, the words stuck in her throat. That, she finally said, is someone from a long time ago. Is he our father? Theron asked, his usual brightness dimmed. Aveline knelt down so she was eye level with them. Yes. The word felt like a betrayal. Does he know about us? Selim asked. No. Why not? Riven's voice was sharp now, almost accusing. Aveline took a breath. Because 6 years ago he forgot I existed. And I chose to build a life where I didn't need him to remember. She stood, taking the photograph from Riven's hand and tucking it into her desk drawer. That part of my life is over. You three are my life now. And I will protect you with everything I have. Understood? Riven's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. Selim looked thoughtful. Theron just hugged her waist. We're not scared, Mom, he whispered. We just wanted to know. Aveline kissed the top of his head. Good. Now go. Clara ordered pizza for you. As they filed out, Riven paused at the door. Mom, yes. If he forgot you once, what's stopping him from doing it again? The question hung in the air like smoke. Aveline met her son's gaze. Nothing, she said softly, which is why we're never going back. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. Because at exactly 9:47 p.m. that night, the front desk called. Ms. Marrowyn, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent. Aveline frowned. Who is it? There was a pause. He says his name is Alpha Draventarion and that you're his mate. The world tilted. Aveline gripped the edge of her desk. Tell him I'm not available. He said you'd say that. He also said to tell you. He remembers everything now. Chapter 2. Aveline stood frozen in her office, the phone still pressed against her ear. Miss Marrowyn? Clara's voice crackled through the line. What should I tell him? Her mind raced. 6 years. 6 years of silence. 6 years of building walls so high that nothing, no one, could ever reach her again. And now he was here. In her building. In her city. In her life. Miss Marrowyn? Aveline's voice came out colder than she intended. Send him up. Are you sure? I can call security. Send him up, Clara. And make sure the boys stay in the residence wing. Lock the door if you have to. She hung up before Clara could respond. Her hands were shaking. She hated that. Hated that after all this time, the mere mention of his name could unravel her composure. Aveline moved to the mirror on the side wall, checking her reflection. Her dark hair was pulled into a sleek bun. Her charcoal suit was immaculate. She looked like a woman who had everything under control. She looked like a liar. Taking a slow breath, she steadied herself. You are not the same woman he forgot. You are not broken. You are not his. The elevator chimed. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Steady, confident, unmistakably his. And then the door opened. Draventarion stepped into her office like he owned it. He was exactly as she remembered, and somehow worse. Tall, at least 6'4", with broad shoulders that filled out his black coat like a threat. His hair was still that impossible shade of midnight, though now it was slightly longer, brushing the edge of his collar. His eyes, those piercing ice blue eyes that had once looked at her like she was his entire world. They locked onto her now with an intensity that made her stomach twist. Aveline. Her name on his lips felt like a wound reopening. She didn't move, didn't blink. You're trespassing. His jaw tightened. I'm here to talk. We have nothing to talk about. We have everything to talk about. Aveline crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. You have 60 seconds. Then I'm calling security. Draven's eyes swept over her, taking in the sharp suit, the cold demeanor, the walls she'd built so carefully around herself. You look different. I am different. I can see that. He took a step closer. You're stronger. Sharper. You've built an empire. I built a life, she corrected. One that doesn't include you. The words landed like a blade. Draven flinched, but he didn't back down. I know what I did to you. Aveline laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Do you? Do you really? Because from where I'm standing, you don't have the faintest idea what you did. I forgot you. His voice cracked. I woke up one morning and I didn't know who you were. I didn't remember our bond. I don't remember us. And yet, Aveline said, her voice dangerously soft. You didn't come looking for answers. You didn't fight to remember. You just moved on. Draven's hands clenched into fists. I didn't move on. I was under a curse, Aveline. A blood hex cast by someone I trusted. It took me 6 years to break it. 6 years of searching, of clawing through my own mind, trying to find the pieces of you they buried. Aveline's chest tightened, but she refused to let it show. And who cast this curse? Draven's expression darkened. Evania. The name hit her like a physical blow. Evania. The woman who had appeared in the pack mere weeks after Draven forgot her. The woman who had smiled sweetly while whispering poison into the ears of the elders. The woman who had taken Aveline's place at Draven's side while Aveline was still trying to understand why her own mate looked at her like a stranger. Of course, Aveline whispered. Of course it was her. She wanted to be Luna, Draven said, his voice rough. She thought if she erased you from my memory, I'd bond with her instead. And for 6 years, I believed her lies. I believed I'd never had a mate, that I was free. And now, Draven stepped closer, and this time Aveline didn't retreat. Now I remember everything. Your laugh, your scent, the way you used to read to me when I couldn't sleep, the way you looked at me the night I marked you. His voice dropped to a whisper. The way you looked at me in the morning I didn't recognize you, and your heart shattered. Aveline's throat burned, but she refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of him. You're 6 years too late, Draven. I know. I don't need you anymore. I know that too. Then why are you here? Draven's eyes burned with something raw and desperate. Because even if you don't need me, I need you. I need to make this right. You need closure, Aveline interrupted. You need to feel like a hero who saved the day. But I don't need saving. I saved myself. She walked to her desk, putting distance between them. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to go back to your pack, your territory, your life, and you're going to forget me again. Only this time it'll be your choice. Draven stared at her, his chest rising and falling with barely controlled emotion. I can't do that. Yes, you can. No. His voice turned hard. I can't. Because I know the truth now, Aveline. I know what Evania did. And I know what you did. Aveline's blood turned to ice. What are you talking about? Draven reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He placed it on her desk. A private investigator has been tracking you for the past 3 months. I hired him the moment I broke the curse. I needed to know if you were alive, if you were safe. Aveline's heart pounded. Did you follow me? I had to know. His eyes bore into hers. And what I found changes everything. Aveline's hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. It was a surveillance photograph of her, walking out of the building with 3 boys at her side. Riven, Selim, Theron, her sons, his sons. No, she whispered. Draven's voice was hoarse. How old are they? Aveline crumpled the paper in her fist. Get out. Aveline, get out. Are they mine? The question hung in the air like a live wire. Aveline's eyes blazed with fury. You don't get to ask me that. You don't get to waltz back into my life after 6 years and demand answers. You lost that right the day you forgot I existed. Draven's composure cracked. I didn't forget you by choice, but you replaced me by choice. Aveline shouted, her voice breaking. You let her stand beside you. You let her take my place. You let the pack call her Luna while I was out there alone, pregnant and terrified. The word slipped out before she could stop it. Pregnant. Draven's face went pale. You were pregnant, he breathed. When I forgot you, you were carrying our children. Aveline's silence was answer enough. Draven stumbled back, gripping the edge of a chair for support. How many? It doesn't matter. How many, Aveline? She met his gaze, her eyes wet but defiant. 3. I was carrying 3 of your pups when you looked at me like I was a stranger. The devastation on his face was almost satisfying. Almost. I have sons, Draven whispered. I have 3 sons, and I didn't even know they existed. And you never will, Aveline said coldly, because they are mine. I carried them. I raised them. I protected them. You are nothing to them. Draven looked up, and for the first time, she saw tears in his eyes. Let me meet them. No. Aveline, please. No. Her voice was raw now, all pretense of control gone. You don't get to be their father. You don't get to walk into their lives and play heroes. They don't even know you exist, and that's how it's going to stay. Draven stood, and the sheer presence of him, the alpha power radiating from his body, made the air in the room feel thick. I understand that you hate me, he said quietly. I understand that I don't deserve your forgiveness. But those boys, they're my blood. They're my legacy. And whether you like it or not, they have a right to know who their father is. Aveline's laugh was hollow. Their father? You want to be their father? Then where were you when I was in labor for 16 hours with no pack, no mate, no one? Where were you when Riven wouldn't stop crying for 3 months straight? Where were you when Selim had night terrors and I had to hold him until dawn? Where were you when Theron got sick and I thought I was going to lose him? Her voice broke. You weren't there, Draven. You were never there. So don't you dare stand in my office and tell me they have a right to know you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Draven's shoulders sagged.
You're right, he said hoarsely. I wasn't there, and I can never get those years back. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. Aveline's eyes narrowed. You can't force me to let you into their lives. I'm not going to force anything. Draven straightened, his alpha authority returning. But I am going to stay in this city. I'm going to find a way to prove to you that I'm not the man who forgot you, and I'm going to earn the right to know my sons. He moved toward the door, then paused. Evania is dead, by the way. I killed her 3 months ago when I found out what she'd done. But her family, they're not happy. And if they find out about the boys, about you, they'll come for you. Aveline's blood chilled. Is that a threat? Draven looked back at her, his expression fierce. It's a warning. You can hate me all you want, Aveline. But let me protect you. Let me protect them. And with that he walked out. Aveline stood alone in her office, her entire body trembling. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to hunt him down and make him feel every ounce of pain she'd carried for 6 years. But more than anything, she wanted to protect her sons. And if Draven was telling the truth, if Evania's family was coming, then the war she'd been avoiding was finally at her door. A soft knock pulled her from her thoughts. Mom. She turned. Riven stood in the doorway, his gray eyes sharp and knowing. We heard shouting. Was that him? Aveline's heart sank. How much did you hear? Riven stepped into the room, followed by Selim and Theron. Selim pushed his glasses up. Enough to know he's our father. And that someone named Evania cursed him. And that her family might be dangerous. Theron looked up at her, his usual brightness dimmed. Are we in trouble, Mom? Aveline knelt down, pulling all 3 of them into her arms. No, baby. You're not in trouble. I promise. But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. Because trouble wasn't coming. It was already here. Chapter 3. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Aveline lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of her penthouse suite, her mind replaying the conversation with Draven on an endless loop. I remember everything. I have 3 sons and I didn't even know they existed. Let me protect you. She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to block out the memories that came flooding back. The way he used to hold her. The way his voice would soften when he said her name. The way the mate bond had felt like coming home every single time he touched her. And then, nothing. In the morning he'd looked at her with empty eyes. The way he'd asked the guards who she was. The way Evania had smiled from across the room, victorious and venomous. Aveline had learned that day what it meant to be truly alone. But she'd also learned something else. She was stronger than anyone, including herself, had ever believed. A soft creak pulled her from her thoughts. She sat up. The door to her bedroom was open just a crack and 3 small silhouettes stood in the hallway. Aveline sighed. Come in. Riven entered first as always. Selim followed, clutching a tablet. Theron trailed behind, dragging his favorite blanket. Can't sleep? Aveline asked gently. Riven shook his head. Too many questions. Selim nodded. My brain won't turn off. Theron just climbed into bed and nestled against her side. Aveline wrapped an arm around him and patted the space beside her. Riven and Selim exchanged a glance before joining them. For a moment they just sat there in silence. The 4 of them cocooned in the safety of each other's presence. Finally Riven spoke. Is he really our father? Avelini's chest tightened. Yes. And he forgot you because of a curse? Yes. Selim frowned. But curses aren't real. Are they? Aveline smiled sadly. In our world they are. Our world. Theron looked up at her with wide eyes. You mean, we're not human? Aveline had known this conversation was inevitable. She just hoped to delay it a little longer. But there was no delaying it now. No, sweetheart. We're not human. We're werewolves. The three boys stared at her. Riven's expression was unreadable. Selim looked fascinated. Theron looked thrilled. Like, actual wolves? Theron asked, his eyes lighting up. With claws and fangs and howling at the moon? Something like that, Aveline said softly. Can we shift? Riven asked. Not yet. Most wolves don't shift until they're at least 12. Some even later. But we will. Selim pressed. Yes. When the time comes. Riven's jaw tightened. And our father, he's a werewolf too? Not just a werewolf. Aveline hesitated. He's an alpha. One of the most powerful in the Northern Territories. Which makes us what? Selim asked, his analytical mind already working through the implications. Heirs. Aveline nodded slowly. In his world, yes. You would be considered princes of his pack. His pack, Riven repeated, his voice hard. Not ours. No, Aveline said firmly. Not ours. We don't belong to any pack. We belong to each other. Theron tugged on her sleeve. But Mom, if he's our dad, doesn't that mean he's supposed to love us? The innocence of the question shattered something inside her. Yes, baby. It does. Then why didn't he come sooner? Aveline blinked back tears. Because he didn't remember. The curse made him forget everything about me, including the fact that you existed. That's stupid, Riven muttered. How can someone just forget their own family? It wasn't his choice, Riven. But it was his responsibility. Riven's voice was sharp now, far too mature for a 6-year-old. He should have fought harder. He should have known something was wrong. Aveline pulled him closer. You're right. He should have. So why did you let him in? Riven challenged. Why did you even talk to him? Aveline took a breath. Because, no matter how much I want to keep you away from him, he's still your father. And he says there's danger coming. People who want to hurt us because of what happened to the woman who cursed him. Selim's eyes sharpened. Evania. Yes. And she's dead now? Yes. Good, Riven said coldly. Aveline's heart ached at the hardness in her son's voice. He was too young to carry that kind of anger. But then again, so was she once. Listen to me, Aveline said, looking at each of them in turn. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know if your father will keep his distance or if he'll try to push his way into our lives. But I need you to trust me. I will protect you. No matter what. We know, Mom, Theron said, hugging her tighter. You always do. Riven nodded, though his expression remained guarded. Selim adjusted his glasses. For what it's worth. I think we should meet him. Aveline's eyes widened. What? Think about it logically, Selim said, his tone measured. If he really is an alpha and if we really are his heirs, then we're connected to him whether we like it or not. And if there's a threat coming, we need to know everything we can about it. That includes knowing who our father is. Riven scowled. You want to meet the guy who abandoned us? He didn't abandon us, Selim corrected. He didn't know we existed. There's a difference. Doesn't feel like one. I know. But strategically speaking. This isn't a strategy game, Selim. Boys, Aveline interrupted gently. That's enough. They fell silent. Aveline looked at Selim. You really want to meet him? Selim nodded. I want to see if he's telling the truth. About the curse. About Evania. About everything. Aveline turned to Theron. What about you? Theron chewed his lip. I dunno. I kinda want to see what he looks like. And I want to know if he's nice. Finally, she looked at Riven. And you? Riven's gray eyes, so much like Draven's it hurt, burned with conflict. I want to hate him, he said quietly. But I also want to know why. Why did he let it happen? Why didn't he fight harder? Aveline nodded slowly. All right. If you want to meet him, we'll meet him. But on our terms. In a place where we're safe. And if at any point you want to leave, we leave. Understood. All three boys nodded. Good. Aveline kissed each of their foreheads. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. The next morning, Aveline stood in her office, phone in hand, staring at the number Draven had left on her desk. She told herself she wouldn't call. That she'd make him wait. Make him suffer the way she had suffered. But her sons deserved answers. And if there really was a threat coming, she needed to know. She dialed. He picked up on the first ring. Aveline. His voice sent a shiver down her spine. The boys want to meet you. Silence. Then. When? Today. Noon. There's a park near the waterfront. Crescent Bay. It's public neutral. We'll meet you there. I'll be there. Draven. Yes. Her voice turned cold. If you do anything to hurt them, if you make them feel unwanted or unloved or like they're a burden, I will make you regret the day you were born. Do you understand me? I understand.
Good. She hung up before he could say anything else. Crescent Bay Park was quiet at noon on a Wednesday. Aveline stood near the playground, watching her sons chase each other around the swings. Riven stayed close, always scanning their surroundings. Selim was reading on a bench. Theron was trying to climb a tree and failing spectacularly. They looked so normal, so human, but Aveline could feel the undercurrent of tension in the air. The boys knew what today meant. Mom. She turned. Riven was standing beside her, his gaze fixed on the parking lot. He's here. Aveline followed his line of sight. A black SUV pulled into the lot, sleek and expensive. The door opened and Draven stepped out. He was dressed casually. Jeans, a dark sweater, a leather jacket, but there was nothing casual about the way he carried himself. Every movement was controlled, purposeful, predatory. He spotted them immediately. And for a moment he just stood there, staring at the three boys with an expression Aveline couldn't quite read. Longing, grief, hope. Slowly he walked toward them. Selim noticed first. He nudged Theron, who stopped mid-climb and turned. Is that him? Theron whispered. Yeah, Riven said quietly. That's him. Draven stopped a few feet away, his eyes moving from one boy to the next. Hi, he said, his voice rough. Theron waved shyly. Selim nodded. Riven just stared. Aveline stepped forward, creating a barrier between them. Boys, this is Draventarion. Your father. The word felt foreign on her tongue. Draven's jaw worked, like he was trying to keep his emotions in check. It's good to meet you. All of you. You're tall, Theron blurted out. Draven blinked, then smiled. A small, genuine smile. So I've been told. And you have the same eyes as Riven, Theron continued. And the same serious face. Riven scowled. I don't look serious. You do, Selim said. Statistically, you smile 47% less than the average 6-year-old. That's because the average 6-year-old is annoying. Draven let out a surprised laugh, short and unexpected. Aveline's chest tightened. She hadn't heard him laugh in years. You're Riven, Draven said, crouching down to be at eye level. Aren't you? Riven's expression didn't soften. How'd you know? You move like a protector, like you're always watching for threats. Riven crossed his arms. Someone has to. The implication was clear. Draven flinched, but didn't argue. He turned to Selim. And you must be Selim. Selim pushed his glasses up. Correct. You deduced that based on the process of elimination, I assume. And the fact that you're holding a book on advanced physics. Selim glanced down at his book, then back at Draven. You're observant. I try to be. Finally, Draven looked at Theron. Which makes you Theron? Theron grinned. Yup. I'm the fun one. I can see that. Draven stood, his gaze drifting back to Aveline. They're incredible. I know, Aveline said simply. They look like you. Yes, I'm aware. Draven's throat bobbed. Can I talk to them? Alone. Riven stiffened. No. Draven's eyes widened. No. Mom stays, Riven said firmly. We don't know you. That's fair, Draven said quietly. I wouldn't trust me either. He sat down on the grass, folding his long legs beneath him. The boys exchanged glances. Slowly, cautiously, they sat across from him. Aveline remained standing, arms crossed, every muscle in her body coiled and ready. So, Draven began, his voice careful. What do you want to know? Why did you forget, Mom? Riven asked immediately. Draven didn't hesitate. Because a woman I trusted cast a curse on me. She wanted to be Luna, so she erased your mother from my memory. And you didn't notice? Selim asked skeptically. I should have, but the curse was thorough. It didn't just erase her. It erased the feeling that something was missing. I thought I was whole. That's convenient, Riven muttered. Draven's expression tightened. You're right to be angry. I would be too. Good, Riven snapped. Because I am angry. Mom had to raise us alone because you were too weak to break a curse. Riven, Aveline started. No, he's right, Draven interrupted, his voice thick. I was weak. I should have fought harder. I should have known. He looked at Riven, and for the first time, there were tears in his eyes. I failed you. All of you. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it. Riven's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Theron leaned forward. Do you have a wolf? Draven smiled faintly. I do. Can we see it? Not here. But someday, if your mother allows it. All three boys looked at Aveline. She sighed. We'll see. Selim adjusted his glasses. You mentioned a threat. Ivania's family. What exactly are we dealing with? Draven's expression darkened. Ivania came from a powerful family, the Veil line. They're old blood. Dangerous. When I killed her, I expected retaliation. But they've been quiet. Too quiet. Which means they're planning something, Selim concluded. Exactly. And you think they'll come after us? If they find out you exist, yes. Riven's eyes narrowed. Then we need to be ready. Draven looked at him with something close to pride. You're right. We do. But we're 6, Theron pointed out. What can we do? You'd be surprised, Draven said softly. Alpha blood runs strong. Even at your age, you're more capable than you think. Aveline stiffened. They're not soldiers, Draven. I know that. But if the Veil family comes, hiding won't be enough. The tension in the air thickened. Riven stood abruptly. I want to learn. Aveline's heart sank. Riven, I want to learn how to protect us. How to fight. How to be strong. Draven stood as well, his gaze locking onto Riven's. Then I'll teach you. No, Aveline said sharply. Absolutely not. Mom. I said no, Riven. But Riven's eyes, those storm gray eyes so much like his father's, burned with determination. Then I'll find someone else to teach me. And with that, he turned and walked away. Chapter 4. Aveline found Riven sitting on the dock, his legs dangling over the edge, staring out at the gray water. She didn't say anything at first, just sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. For a long moment, they watched the waves in silence. Finally, Riven spoke. I'm not a baby, Mom. Aveline's chest tightened. I know. Then why won't you let me learn? Because you're 6 years old, Riven. You should be playing, laughing, being a kid. I can't be a kid when people are trying to hurt us. The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Because he was right. She tried so hard to give them a normal life. School, friends, birthday parties. But normal had never really been an option, had it? Not when they carried alpha blood. Not when their father was one of the most powerful wolves in the north. Not when a family of vengeful wolves wanted them dead. You're so much like him, Aveline whispered. Riven's head snapped toward her. Don't say that. It's true. You have his eyes, his instincts, his need to protect everyone around you, even when it costs you. Riven's jaw tightened. I'm nothing like him. You are. And that's not a bad thing. He abandoned you. He forgot me. There's a difference. Is there? Riven's voice cracked. Because it doesn't feel like it. Aveline wrapped an arm around him, pulling him close. I know, baby. I know. Riven leaned into her, and for a moment he was just a little boy again, scared and uncertain and trying so hard to be brave. I don't want to lose you, Mom. You won't. But what if they come? What if I'm not strong enough to protect you and Selim and Theron? Aveline cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. Listen to me. You are not responsible for protecting this family. That's my job. Do you understand? But, no buts. You're my son, Riven. not my soldier. And I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Tears welled in Riven's eyes. I don't want to be useless. You can never be useless. Aveline kissed his forehead. You're my strength, Riven. Just by existing, you make me braver than I've ever been. Riven nodded slowly, wiping his eyes. They sat together for a few more minutes, watching the seagulls circle overhead. Then Riven spoke again, quieter this time. Do you think he really wants to know us? Or does he just feel guilty? Aveline considered the question carefully. I think both, but I also think he's telling the truth. He does want to know you. I saw it in his eyes. Do you still love him? The question caught her off guard. Aveline opened her mouth to say no, to tell Riven that whatever she'd felt for Draven had died the day he forgot her. But the words wouldn't come, because the truth was she didn't know. The mate bond was supposed to be eternal, unbreakable. Even when Draven had forgotten her, even when the bond had been severed by the curse, a part of her had still ached for him. And now that he remembered, now that he was here, looking at her with those same eyes that used to make her feel like the most important person in the world, she didn't know what she felt. It's complicated, she finally said. Riven frowned. That's not an answer. I know. Aveline smiled sadly. But it's the only one I have right now. When they returned to the playground, Draven was still there. He was sitting on a bench with Theron, who was showing him something on his tablet, a drawing, it looked like. Selim stood nearby, watching with his usual analytical expression. Draven looked up when he saw them approach. His eyes moved immediately to Riven, filled with concern. Everything okay? Riven didn't answer. Aveline squeezed his shoulder gently. We're fine. Draven nodded, though he didn't look convinced. Theron hopped off the bench, running over to Aveline. Mom, I showed him my dragon drawing and he said it was amazing. That's because it is amazing, Aveline said, ruffling his hair. And he said he knows stories about real dragons. Theron's eyes were wide with excitement. Can he tell us? Please. Aveline hesitated. Draven stood, his expression careful. Only if your mother says it's okay. 3 pairs of hopeful eyes turned to her. Aveline sighed. Fine, but just one story. Theron cheered. Selim settled onto the grass. Even Riven, after a moment's hesitation, sat down. Draven lowered himself to the ground, crossing his legs. And then he began. A long time ago, Draven said, his voice taking on a storytelling rhythm. Before packs and territories, before alphas and lunas, the world was ruled by creatures far more ancient than wolves. Theron leaned forward. Dragons? Dragons, Draven confirmed. But not the kind you see in movies. These dragons were made of elements. Fire, water, earth, air, shadow. Shadow dragons? Selim asked, intrigued. The rarest kind. They lived in the spaces between worlds, neither fully here nor fully gone. And they were the ones who gave wolves their first gift. What gift? Riven asked despite himself. Draven's eyes glinted. The gift of the shift. He paused, letting the words sink in. Humans were weak, fragile. They had no claws, no fangs, no way to defend themselves against the predators of the old world. So a shadow dragon took pity on them. She bit a human man on the night of a blood moon. And when he woke, he was no longer just human. He was the first werewolf, Selim breathed. Exactly. And with that bite came power, strength, speed, the ability to become something more. But it also came with a cost. What cost? Theron whispered. Draven's expression darkened. The wolves could never be fully human again. And they could never be fully beast. They were caught in between, forever bound to both worlds, but never truly belonging to either. Silence fell over the group. Aveline watched her sons absorb the story, their young minds grappling with the weight of it. Is that why we feel different? Riven asked quietly. Because we're in between? Draven nodded. Yes, you'll always feel it. The pull of your human side and the call of your wolf. And learning to balance them, that's the hardest part. Did you have a hard time? Selim asked. Draven's jaw tightened. I still do, especially when I'm angry. Or scared. You get scared? Theron looked surprised. Everyone gets scared, Theron. Even alphas. What scares you? Riven challenged. Draven met his gaze without flinching. Losing the people I love. The honesty in his voice was disarming. Riven looked away first. Aveline cleared her throat. All right, the story's over. It's time to head home. Ah, Mom, Theron protested. One more. Not today. Draven stood, brushing grass off his jeans. Can I see you again? All of you. Aveline opened her mouth to refuse. But then Selim spoke. Friday. We have a school presentation. You can come. If you want. Draven's face lit up. I'd like that. What's the presentation about? Family trees, Selim said, adjusting his glasses. We're supposed to bring information about our heritage. Aveline's stomach dropped. Selim. It's okay, Mom. I want him there. Draven looked at Aveline, hope and hesitation warring in his expression. She sighed. Fine. Friday. 2:00. Westbridge Academy. Don't be late. I won't. As they turned to leave, Draven called out. Aveline. She stopped but didn't turn around. Thank you. She didn't respond. Just kept walking, her sons at her side. That night, Aveline stood in front of the mirror in her bathroom, staring at her reflection. She looked tired, older than her 28 years, but there was something else there too. A flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. She hated it. Hope was dangerous. Hope makes you vulnerable. Hope made you believe that things could be different, better. And every time she'd let herself hope, the world had crushed it. But her sons, they were starting to let him in. Selim with his curiosity, Theron with his open heart. Even Riven, despite his anger, was asking questions. They wanted to know their father. And maybe she owed them that. A knock on her bedroom door pulled her from her thoughts. Come in. Clara stepped inside, her expression grim. We have a problem. Aveline's guard went up immediately. What kind of problem? Clara handed her a tablet. On the screen was a surveillance photo, grainy, taken from a distance. It showed Draven in the park with her sons. And in the corner, barely visible, was a figure in the shadows. Watching them. Who took this? Aveline demanded. Unknown. It was sent to the company's general inbox 20 minutes ago. No return address. No message. Aveline zoomed in on the shadowy figure. She couldn't make out a face, but she could see the glint of something metallic. A camera. Or a weapon. Increase security, Aveline said, her voice cold. Double the perimeter. I want eyes on every entrance and exit. And I want a full background check on anyone who's come within 100 feet of this building in the last 48 hours. Already on it, Clara said. But Aveline, if someone's watching you, then we make sure they don't get close enough to do anything about it. Clara nodded and left. Aveline stared at the photo for a long moment. Then she dialed Draven's number. He answered immediately. Aveline? Is everything. We were followed today. Silence. Then. Are you sure? Positive. Someone took a photo of you with the boys. They sent it to me. She heard him swear under his breath. I'll be there in 10 minutes. No. Stay where you are. I just needed you to know. Aveline. This is my city, Draven. My territory. I'll handle it. Not alone, you won't. I've been handling things alone for 6 years. I don't need you now. Maybe not. But the boys do. The word stung because they were true. Friday, Aveline said finally. Come to school on Friday. We'll talk then. And until then, watch your back. She hung up before he could argue. Across the city in a darkened hotel room, a figure sat at a desk, staring at a wall of photographs. Photos of Aveline, photos of the boys, photos of Draven, all connected by red string. The figure smiled, a cold, calculated smile. Found you, they whispered, and then they picked up their phone and dialed. It's me. I have confirmation. She has 3 sons. All of them are his. A pause. Yes, I'm sure. Another pause. When do you want me to move? The voice on the other end was calm, deliberate, and utterly devoid of mercy. Soon, but not yet. Let them feel safe first. Let them believe they're protected. And then we take everything. The figure hung up, and in the darkness, their smiles widened. The hunt had begun. Chapter 5. Friday arrived with unseasonable warmth. The sun broke through Vancouver's perpetual cloud cover, casting golden light across the city. It should have felt like a good omen. Instead, Aveline felt like she was walking into a trap. She stood in the hallway of Westbridge Academy, watching parents file into the auditorium for the family heritage presentations. They looked so normal, so human. Mothers in cardigans and jeans, fathers in business casual, checking their phones. None of them knew what it was like to live with one eye always on the door, waiting for danger to come crashing through. Miss Marrowyn, Aveline turned to find Mrs. Chun, Selim's teacher, approaching with a warm smile. I'm so glad you could make it. Selim has been talking about this presentation all week. Has he? Aveline forced a smile. He's been very secretive at home. That's because he wanted to surprise you. Mrs. Chin leaned in conspiratorially. Between you and me, I think it's going to be the best one. I'm sure it will be. Mrs. Chin glanced past her. Is anyone else joining you? Selim mentioned his father might be coming. Aveline's smile tightened. He said he would. As if summoned by the words, she felt him before she saw him. That pull, that awareness that made her skin prickle and her wolf, dormant for so long, stir restlessly beneath her skin. She turned. Draven stood at the entrance of the hallway, looking completely out of place among the suburban families. He wore dark slacks and a gray button-down, the sleeves rolled to his elbows. His hair was pushed back, revealing the sharp lines of his face. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread, or a nightmare, depending on your perspective. His eyes found hers immediately, and for a moment, the hallway fell away. It was just them. Just the invisible thread that had once bound them so tightly that breathing without each other had felt impossible. Then Mrs. Chin cleared her throat. Oh, is this? Yes, Aveline said stiffly. This is Draven, the boy's father. Draven crossed the distance between them in a few long strides, extending his hand to Mrs. Chun. It's nice to meet you. I've heard wonderful things about your class. Mrs. Chun blushed, actually blushed, as she shook his hand. Well, Selim is a remarkable student. You must be very proud. I am, Draven said, and the sincerity in his voice made Aveline's chest ache. Mrs. Chun excused herself to prepare the auditorium, leaving them alone in the hallway. Draven turned to Aveline. You look beautiful. She crossed her arms. Don't what? Don't do that. Don't act like we're a normal couple here to watch our son's presentation. Aren't we? No. We're two people who share DNA with 3 children. That's it. Draven's jaw tightened. Is that really all we are? Yes. You're lying. Aveline's eyes flashed. Excuse me. You feel it too. The bond. It's still there, Aveline. Damaged, maybe. Scarred. But it's there. The bond was broken when you forgot me. No, Draven said quietly. It was buried. There's a difference. Before Aveline could respond, a small voice called out. Dad! They both turned. Theron was running down the hallway, his face lit up with excitement. Behind him, Riven and Selim walked at a more measured pace. Draven's entire expression softened. Hey, buddy. Theron crashed into him, wrapping his arms around Draven's waist. Draven froze for a moment as if unsure what to do, before slowly, carefully, returning the embrace. Aveline's throat tightened. She'd never seen Theron hug anyone outside their small family unit. Riven stopped a few feet away, his expression guarded. Selim adjusted his glasses, watching the interaction with clinical interest. You came, Selim said. I said I would, Draven replied. Statistically, only 62% of separated parents show up to school events. I'm not a statistic. Selim tilted his head. Fair enough. Riven's eyes moved between Draven and Aveline. Are you two fighting? No, Aveline said quickly. Yes, Draven said at the same time. Riven's lips twitched. Almost a smile. At least you're honest. Come on, Selim said, tugging on Aveline's hand. We need to get to our seats. I'm presenting third. The auditorium was packed. Aveline sat in the front row with Draven on one side and Theron on the other. Riven sat beside Draven, maintaining a careful distance. The presentations began. First was a girl named Sophie, who talked about her grandmother's immigration from Ireland. then a boy named Marcus, who brought photos of his father's military service. And then it was Selim's turn. He walked onto the stage with his poster board and his tablet, looking completely at ease in front of the crowd. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice clear and confident. "My name is Aveline Marrowyn, and today I'm going to tell you about my family." He clicked a button on his tablet, and an image appeared on the screen behind him. It was a drawing, beautifully detailed for a 6-year-old, of a wolf standing on a mountain, howling at the moon. Whispers rippled through the audience. "My family," Selim continued, "comes from a long line of protectors, people who guarded others, who fought for what was right, and who never backed down from a challenge." He clicked again. This time, the image was of Aveline. "This is my mom. She's the strongest person I know. She built a company from nothing. She raised me and my brothers by herself. And she taught us that strength isn't about how loud you are or how big you are. It's about how you stand up when everything is trying to knock you down." Aveline's eyes burned. Selim clicked again. Now the image was of 3 boys, clearly Riven, Selim, and Theron, standing together. "These are my brothers. Riven is the protector. He always makes sure we're safe. Theron is the heart. He reminds us to laugh even when things are hard. And I'm the one who asks too many questions." Soft laughter filled the room. Selim clicked one more time, and there on the screen was a drawing of a man with ice blue eyes. "Draven. This is my father," Selim said, his voice quieter now. "I didn't know him for most of my life, but I'm starting to. And I'm learning that family isn't just about who's there from the beginning. It's about who chooses to stay." He looked directly at Draven. "Even when it's hard." The room was silent. Draven's hand gripped the armrest so tightly that Aveline heard the wood creak. "My heritage," Selim concluded, "is about resilience, about love, and about the people who refuse to give up on each other, no matter what." He bowed slightly, and the auditorium erupted in applause. Aveline wiped her eyes quickly, hoping no one noticed. But Draven noticed. He leaned over, his voice low. "He's incredible." "I know," Aveline whispered. "You did that. You raised him to be that strong. That's brave." "We did that," she corrected, surprising herself. "Whether you were there or not, he has your blood, your strength." Draven looked at her, and for the first time in 6 years, she saw the man she'd fallen in love with. Not the alpha, not the king, just Draven. "Thank you," he said hoarsely. Before she could respond, Theron tugged on her sleeve. "Mom, can we get ice cream after this? Please." Aveline smiled. "We'll see. Dad can come too, right?" Theron looked at Draven, hopefully. Draven's eyes moved to Aveline, asking permission. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, he can come too." The ice cream shop was small and cheerful, with bright yellow walls and mismatched chairs. Aveline sat at a corner table, watching Draven help Theron choose between chocolate chip and mint. Riven sat beside her, his cone already half finished. "He's trying," Riven said quietly. Aveline glanced at him. "I know. Do you think he means it? Or is he just doing this because he feels guilty?" "I think both. But I also think he genuinely wants to be here." Riven licked his cone thoughtfully. Selim's presentation was good. He called Dad a part of our family. "I noticed. Are you mad about it?" Aveline sighed. "No, I'm not mad. I don't know how to feel." Riven looked up at her with those storm gray eyes. "Maybe you don't have to know yet." The wisdom in his words startled her. "When did you get so smart?" Riven shrugged. "I've always been smart. You just don't notice because Selim uses bigger words." Aveline laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. Draven returned with Theron and Selim, each holding massive cones. "Did you buy it from the store?" Aveline asked, eyeing Theron's triple scoop monstrosity. "He said he couldn't choose," Draven said, smirking. "So I got him all 3. That's going to end badly. Probably." They sat together, eating ice cream and talking about nothing important. For a moment, it almost felt normal, like a family. But then Aveline's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Her blood turned to ice. It was a message from an unknown number. No words, just a photo of them, right now, sitting in the ice cream shop, taken from across the street. Aveline stood so abruptly that her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Aveline. Draven was on his feet instantly, his alpha instincts flaring. What's wrong? She showed him the phone. His expression darkened immediately. Boys, he said, his voice calm but commanding. Stay with your mother. Don't move. What's happening? Riven demanded. Just stay here, Aveline said, already scanning the street outside. Draven was already moving toward the door. Draven, wait. But he was gone. Aveline's heart pounded as she watched him cross the street, his movements predatory and precise. He disappeared into an alley. Seconds stretched into eternity. And then, crash, the sound of breaking glass, a shout. Aveline's instinct screamed at her to run, to fight, to protect. But she couldn't leave the boys. Mom, Selim said, his voice tight with fear. What's going on? I don't know, baby, but we're going to be okay. Riven stood, his body tense. We should help him. No, we stay here. But, Riven, I said no. And then Draven reappeared. He was breathing hard, his shirt torn at the shoulder. But he was holding something. A camera, smashed and broken. He crossed back to them, his eyes burning with fury. Whoever it was, they're gone. But they were watching us, photographing us. Aveline's stomach churned. Did you see their face? No. They ran before I could catch them. He handed her the broken camera. But I got this. Selim took it, examining it closely. There might be data on the memory card. If I can extract it. Later, Aveline interrupted. Right now, we need to get home. Now. No one argued. They left the ice cream shop in silence, the afternoon's warmth replaced by cold, creeping dread. Because whoever was watching them, they were getting bolder. And that meant one thing. The war was coming. Chapter 6. The penthouse was on full lockdown. Every window was sealed. Every door was monitored. Armed guards, human and wolf alike, patrolled the perimeter in shifts. Aveline stood in her office, watching the city lights blur through the bulletproof glass, her arms wrapped around herself. She'd built this life to be untouchable, impenetrable. But now, with her son's faces potentially in the hands of an enemy she couldn't see, every wall she'd constructed felt paper thin. Mom. She turned. Selim stood in the doorway, the broken camera in his hands. I extracted the memory card. There's something you need to see. Aveline's chest tightened. Show me. They gathered in the living room. Aveline, Draven, and the three boys. Selim connected the memory card to his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard with practiced ease. Whoever took these photos was watching us for at least 3 days, he said, his voice clinical. There are over 200 images. The screen is filled with thumbnails, photos of Aveline leaving the building, photos of the boys at school, photos of Draven entering the parking garage, photos of all of them together at the park, and photos from today at the school, at the ice cream shop. They've been tracking our movements, Draven said, his voice a low growl. Learning our patterns. But why not attack? Riven asked, his fists clenched. If they know where we are, why just watch? Because they're gathering intelligence, Selim said, scrolling through the images. They want to know everything before they move. Our routines, our security, our weaknesses. Then we're sitting ducks, Theron whispered, his usual brightness dimmed by fear. No, Aveline said firmly. We're not. We're adapting. Draven leaned forward. Selim, can you trace where these photos were uploaded? Or if they were sent to anyone? I'm trying, but... Selim frowned. Wait, there's something else on here. He clicked on a folder labeled Bloodline. Inside were documents, medical records, DNA reports, birth certificates. They know, Aveline breathed, her blood turning to ice. They know the boys are yours. Draven's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the surface. How? These records are sealed, Selim said, his voice shaking. I made sure of it. There's no way anyone could access them unless someone on the inside gave them access, Aveline finished. The room fell silent. You think there's a mole? Riven asked. I don't know, but we need to find out. Aveline turned to Draven. You said Avania's family was powerful. Who leads them now? Draven's jaw tightened. Her brother, Silas Vale. The name sent a chill down Avelini's spine. Tell me about him. He's ruthless, calculating, and unlike Evania, he doesn't act on emotion. He plans, he strategizes, and he never moves unless he's certain of victory. So he's been watching us because he's building a case, Selim said, gathering evidence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Exactly. Avelini's mind raced. Then we need to move first. Draven looked at her sharply. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we stop hiding and start hunting. No, Draven said immediately. Absolutely not. You and the boys need to stay here where it's safe. Safe? Avelini laughed bitterly. They've been photographing us for 3 days, Draven. There is no safe. Not anymore. Then we leave the city. I'll take you back to my territory. The fortress is a cage, Avelini interrupted. You want me to run? To hide behind your walls while Silas Vale gathers more intelligence, more allies, more leverage? No. I've spent 6 years running. I'm done. Avelini. I'm not asking for your permission, Draven. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. The air between them crackled with tension. Riven stood up. I'm with Mom. Me too, Selim added. Theron looked between them, then raised his hand. Me 3. Draven stared at them, his mate and his sons, united and defiant, and something in his expression shifted. Pride. Fear. Love. Fine, he said quietly. We hunt, but we do it smart, and we do it together. Avelini nodded. Agreed. So where do we start? Riven asked. Selim pulled up another file on his laptop. With this, it was a partial email recovered from the camera's deleted files. Subject, Phase 1 complete. The target has been identified. 3 offspring, ages 6, all exhibiting early alpha traits. Recommend immediate extraction before they reach maturity. Awaiting your command. V. Draven's hands clenched into fists. V. That's Silas's signature. Extraction, Avelini repeated, her voice hollow. They want to take the boys. Over my dead body, Draven snarled. That's probably the plan, Selim said grimly. Avelini forced herself to breathe, to think. If they're planning an extraction, they'll need a location. Somewhere isolated. Somewhere they can move quickly without drawing attention. The docks, Draven said immediately. There's an abandoned shipping yard on the east side. It's been a known smuggling route for years. If they're moving anything, or anyone, they'd use it. Then that's where we start. It was past midnight when they arrived at the docks. The air smelled of salt, rust, and decay. Massive shipping containers loomed like metal giants in the darkness, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Avelini had left the boys at the penthouse with Clara and a full security detail. It had taken 20 minutes of arguing, but she'd finally convinced them that this was reconnaissance only. She and Draven moved through the shadows, silent and synchronized. It was strange, fighting beside him again. Her body remembered his movements, anticipated them. Even after 6 years, the bond between them hummed with muscle memory. There, Draven whispered, pointing to a warehouse at the far end of the yard. Light spilled from the cracks beneath the door. Voices carried on the wind. They crept closer, pressing themselves against the side of the building. Through a grimy window, Avelini could make out figures inside. 5 of them, all wolves, judging by their posture and the way they moved. And in the center of the room, standing with his arms crossed, was a man who could only be Silas Vale. He was tall, nearly as tall as Draven, with sharp features and hair the color of winter frost. His eyes were cold, calculating, and utterly devoid of warmth. Phase 2 begins tomorrow, Silas said, his voice smooth and dangerous. The targets will be at the school between noon and 3. We move during the transition. Quick, clean, no witnesses. And the mother, one of the wolves asked. She's irrelevant. If she interferes, eliminate her. Avelini's blood boiled. The alpha, another wolf asked. Draventarion is powerful, but he's emotional. He'll be too focused on protecting his mate to think strategically. That's his weakness, and we'll exploit it. Draven's hand found Avelini's in the darkness, squeezing once. She squeezed back. What about the extraction team? A third wolf asked. Already in position. They'll move in through the west entrance of the school. The humans won't even know we were there until it's too late. And the boys, what do we do with them once we have them? Silas smiled, a cold, predatory smile. We take them to the compound. We study them. And if they're as powerful as the reports suggest, we use them. How do you use them? Alpha blood is valuable. Their genetics could strengthen our entire line. And if they resist? Silas shrugged. Then we break them. Children are easier to mold than adults. Avelini's vision went red. She lunged forward, but Draven caught her, pulling her back. Not yet, he whispered harshly. We're outnumbered. We need backup. They're talking about breaking my children, Aveline hissed. I know, and we will stop them. But not like this. Every instinct in her body screamed to burst through that door and tear Silas apart. But Draven was right. They needed a plan. Slowly, reluctantly, she let him pull her away from the window. They retreated into the shadows, making their way back to the car. Once inside, Aveline slammed her fist against the dashboard. Tomorrow. They're moving tomorrow. Then we move first, Draven said, his voice hard. We pull the boys from school. We get them somewhere Silas can't reach. Where? You heard him. He's been planning this for weeks. He knows our routines, our security, our weaknesses. Then we change everything. Aveline looked at him. What are you suggesting? Draven's eyes burned with determination. We go on the offensive. We will take the fight to him. How? We make them think they're winning. We let them believe the boys are vulnerable. And when they move, he smiled, a dangerous, feral smile. We're waiting. Aveline's heart pounded. You want to use my sons as bait? I want to use the illusion of vulnerability as bait, Draven corrected. The boys will be safe, protected, but Silas won't know that. He'll think he has the upper hand. And that's when we strike. Aveline's mind raced through the possibilities. It was risky, insane even, but it might be their only chance. We'll need help, she said finally. More than just the two of us. I have wolves I trust. My beta, Kaylin. My head of security, Merrick. They'll come if I call. And I have my team at North Star. Clara can coordinate. We have ex-military, ex-intelligence. People who know how to fight. Draven nodded. Then we do this together. Together, Aveline echoed. For a moment, they just sat there, the weight of what they were about to do settling over them. Then Draven spoke, his voice quieter. I won't let anything happen to them, Aveline. I swear it. I know. And I won't let anything happen to you. Aveline met his gaze. I can take care of myself. I know that too. But that doesn't mean I won't try. Something passed between them, an understanding, a truce. Maybe even the beginning of something more. We should get back, Aveline said, breaking the moment. The boys will be worried. Yeah. As Draven started the car, Aveline looked out the window at the dark warehouse in the distance. Tomorrow, everything will change. Either they would win, or they would lose everything. When they returned to the penthouse, the boys were still awake. All three of them sat in the living room, pretending to watch a movie, but clearly waiting. The moment Aveline walked through the door, they rushed to her. What happened? Riven demanded. Did you find them? Selim asked. Are we in trouble? Theron's voice was small. Aveline knelt down, pulling them into a tight embrace. Listen to me. All of you. Tomorrow is going to be different. We're not going to school. We're not following our normal routine. Why not? Riven asked. Because the people who have been watching us are planning to take you. And we're not going to let that happen. Theron's eyes widened. They want to kidnap us? Yes, but they won't succeed. Because we're going to stop them. How? Selim asked. Draven stepped forward. By being smarter, faster, stronger, and by working together. Riven looked at him, then at Aveline. What do you need us to do? Trust us, Aveline said. And stay close. Can you do that? All three boys nodded. Good. She stood, ushering them toward their rooms. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. As they disappeared down the hall, Draven moved beside her. They're brave, he said quietly. They're terrified, Aveline corrected. But they're trying to be brave for me. Like their mother. She looked at him. We can't fail them, Draven. We won't. He reached out, hesitating for just a moment before placing his hand over hers. "We won't," he repeated. And for the first time in 6 years, Aveline let herself believe him. Across the city, in a sleek high-rise office, Silas Vale stood at the window, staring out at the glittering lights. His phone buzzed. He answered without looking. "Report. They were at the docks tonight. The Alpha and the woman. They know about Phase 2. Silas smiled. "Perfect. Sir, they think they're ahead of us. That gives us the advantage. I don't understand. They'll change their plans, alter their routine, try to set a trap." Silas's reflection in the window was cold and calculating, which is exactly what I want them to do. He ended the call, and in the silence that followed, he whispered to himself, "Come to me, little wolves. Let's see how clever you really are." Chapter 7. Dawn broke with the color of blood. Aveline stood on the balcony of her penthouse, watching the crimson sky bleed into orange and gold. She hadn't slept. I couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her sons being torn away from her, saw their faces twisted in fear, saw herself failing them. "You're thinking too much." She didn't turn. She'd felt Draven approach, the bond between them still humming faintly like a half-remembered song. "I'm thinking exactly enough," she replied. He moved beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "They're going to be okay, Aveline. You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because we're not going to let anything happen to them." She finally looked at him. His jaw was tight, his eyes shadowed with the same sleeplessness that haunted her. "What if we're wrong?" she whispered. "What if Silas is smarter than we think? What if—" Draven turned to her, gripping her shoulders firmly but gently. "Stop. We can't win this if you're already defeated in your mind." "I'm not defeated. I'm terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. But don't let it paralyze you." Aveline searched his eyes, those ice-blue eyes that had once been her entire world. "When did you become so wise?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. 6 years of regret teaches you a lot." Before she could respond, Clara's voice crackled through the intercom. "Ms. Marrowyn, your team is assembled, and Draven's wolves have arrived." Aveline straightened, her mask of composure sliding back into place. "Tell them we'll be right down." The penthouse's lower level had been converted into a makeshift war room. Maps covered every surface. Laptops glowed with surveillance feeds. And standing around the central table was an unlikely alliance. On one side stood Aveline's team from Northstar Security, 5 of her best operatives, all human, all deadly. On the other side stood Draven's wolves, his beta, Kalen, a broad-shouldered man with copper hair and knowing eyes, Merrick, his head of security, scarred and silent, and 3 others whose names Aveline hadn't learned yet, but whose loyalty to Draven was evident in the way they watched him. In the corner, under Clara's watchful eye, sat Riven, Selim, and Theron. They'd refused to be sent away. Aveline had eventually relented, but only on the condition that they stayed out of the actual fighting. Draven moved to the head of the table, every inch the Alpha King. "Thank you all for coming. I know some of you don't know each other. Some of you have never worked together. But today, that doesn't matter. Today, we're one pack, one unit, and we have one goal." He tapped the map spread across the table, a detailed layout of Westbridge Academy. "Silas Vale and his wolves are planning to extract 3 targets from this school at approximately 1 p.m. They believe the targets will be vulnerable, unprotected. But they won't be," Aveline continued, stepping beside him, "because the boys won't be at school. They'll be here in the penthouse behind reinforced walls and armed guards." Kalen frowned. "Then what's the play?" "We let Silas's team walk into the school," Draven said. "We let them believe they have the advantage. And when they realize the boys aren't there, when they scramble to regroup, we take them down." "You want to ambush them at the school?" Marek's voice was gravelly. "That's risky. Too many humans. Too many civilians. Which is why we'll have 2 teams, Aveline said. She pointed to the map. Team Alpha, led by Draven, will be positioned at the school. Your job is to intercept Silas's wolves the moment they enter. Quick, clean, no collateral damage. She moved her finger to a different location on the map. Team Omega, led by me, will be stationed here. The docks. Because Silas won't send all his people to the school. He's too smart for that. He'll have a backup team waiting at the extraction point, and that's where we'll hit him hardest. One of Draven's wolves, a young woman with sharp features, raised her hand. And if Silas himself shows up, then we capture him, Draven said coldly. And we end this. Kalen crossed his arms. You really think he'll expose himself? No, Aveline admitted. But we'll be ready if he does. What about the kids? Clara asked, her eyes moving to the boys. Are they really safe here? Safer than anywhere else, Aveline said. This building is a fortress, and I'm leaving 4 guards with them. If anything happens, if anyone even tries to get close, they have orders to evacuate through the underground garage and head to a safe house. Riven stood up. We don't need babysitters. Yes, you do, Aveline said firmly. And this is not up for debate. Riven's jaw tightened, but he sat back down. Selim pushed his glasses up. For the record, this plan has a 73% chance of success. Those aren't terrible odds. They're not great odds either, Theron muttered. Which is why we're going to be careful, Draven said. He looked at each of the boys in turn. Stay here. Stay safe. And trust that we will come back. Promise? Theron's voice was small. Draven knelt down so he was eye level with his youngest son. I promise. 30 minutes later, the teams dispersed. Aveline found herself standing in the elevator with Draven, the silence between them heavy. You don't have to lead Team Omega, Draven said quietly. You could stay here, with the boys. And you could stay here too, Aveline countered. But you won't, because you're their father and you want to protect them. Exactly. Well, I'm their mother, and I want the same thing. Draven sighed. You're impossible. I prefer determination. The elevator doors opened. Draven caught her arm before she could step out. Aveline. She turned. If something happens, if things go wrong. They won't. But if they do. His grip tightened. Get out. Don't try to be a hero. Just get out and get back to them. Aveline's throat tightened. The same goes for you. He nodded. And then, before she could stop herself, she reached up and pressed her palm against his cheek. Don't die, Draven. The boys just met you. They need more time. His hand covered hers. They're not the only ones who need more time. Her breath caught. For a moment, the world narrowed to just the 2 of them, 2 broken people trying to piece together something that had been shattered 6 years ago. Then the moment passed. Aveline pulled away, stepping into the parking garage. See you on the other side, she said. See you on the other side, Draven echoed. 1 p.m. Westbridge Academy. Draven crouched behind a maintenance shed, watching the west entrance of the school through a pair of high-powered binoculars. Kalen was positioned on the roof. Merrick and the others were scattered around the perimeter. And the school itself was operating normally. Children laughing, teachers moving between classrooms, completely unaware of the danger circling them. Movement, Kalen's voice crackled through the earpiece. 2 vans, black, no plates, heading for the west entrance. Copy that, Draven murmured. Hold position. The vans pulled up. Doors slid open. 6 wolves emerged, dressed in civilian clothes, but moving with the coordinated precision of soldiers. Draven's lip curled. They're really doing this. In broad daylight. They think they're untouchable, Kalen said. Let's prove them wrong. The wolves entered the school. Draven counted to 10. Then he moved. 1:05 p.m. The docks. Aveline stood in the shadows of a shipping container, her team spread out around her. The abandoned warehouse was quiet. Too quiet. Anything, she whispered into her comm. Negative, one of her operatives replied. No movement. No vehicles. Aveline frowned. They should be here by now. Maybe they're running late. Or maybe... Aveline's blood turned cold. They knew we'd be here. What? It's a trap. Silas knew we'd split our forces. He's not coming to the docks. He's going after the school. But Draven's team is at the school. Not enough of them. Not if Silas sent everyone. Aveline's mind raced. Fall back. Now. We need to get to... A gunshot rang out. Then another. Contact, one of her operatives shouted. East side. Multiple hostiles. Wolves poured out of the containers around them. At least a dozen, maybe more. They'd been waiting. Ambush, Aveline yelled. Defensive positions. Her team opened fire, silver bullets tearing through the air. But the wolves were fast, too fast. One of them lunged at Aveline. She sidestepped, drawing a silver-edged knife from her belt and slashing upward. The blade bit deep, and the wolf yelped, retreating. But 3 more took its place. Aveline fought with everything she had, her training, her instincts, her sheer desperation to survive. But she was outnumbered, and in the chaos, she realized the truth. This wasn't just an ambush. It was a distraction. "Clara." Aveline screamed into her comm. "Clara, do you copy?" Static. "Clara." More static. And then, finally, a voice. But it wasn't Clara. It was Silas. "Hello, Aveline. Looking for me?" Her blood turned to ice. "Where are you? Where do you think?" "No. No, no, no. If you touch them," Aveline snarled. "You'll what?" "You're at the docks. I'm at the penthouse. And your precious guards? They're already dead." Aveline's world tilted. "You're lying." "Am I? Tell me, Aveline, do you really think you're the only one who can plan an ambush?" The line went dead. Aveline's heart shattered. And then it ignited. "Fall back," she roared to her team. "Get to the vehicles. Now." She ran, faster than she'd ever run in her life, toward the car, her only thought a desperate mantra. "Hold on, boys. I'm coming." 1:10 p.m. The penthouse. Riven heard the gunshots first. They were distant, muffled by the reinforced walls, but unmistakable. He stood, his body tense. "Something's wrong." Selim looked up from his tablet. "Mom said to stay put." "Mom's not here." Theron moved beside them, his face pale. "What do we do?" Riven moved to the window, peering through the blinds. In the hallway outside their door, 2 of the guards lay motionless on the floor. "They're inside," Riven whispered. The door exploded inward, and standing in the doorway, surrounded by wolves, was Silas Vale. He smiled. "Hello, boys. Your father sends his regards." Chapter 8. Riven's mind worked faster than his heart could pound. For guards down, 6 wolves in the doorway, and Silas Vale standing in the center, looking at them like they were prizes to be claimed. Not hostages, not children, prizes. "Stay behind me," Riven whispered to his brothers. Selim's hand tightened on his tablet. Theron pressed against his back, trembling but silent. Silas took a step forward, his smile cold and calculated. "There's no need to be afraid, boys. I'm not here to hurt you." "Liar," Riven said, his voice steady despite the terror clawing at his chest. Silas raised an eyebrow. "Bold. I like that. You must be Riven, the protector." He shifted his gaze to Selim. "And you're the smart one." Then to Theron. "Which makes you the heart." Theron whimpered, and Riven felt rage flood his veins. "Don't look at them. Don't talk to them. Don't even breathe near them." Silas chuckled. "You have your father's fire, but you're still just a child. And children, they don't get to make demands." He nodded to his wolves. "Take them. Carefully. We need them intact." The wolves moved forward, and something inside Riven snapped. He didn't think so. Didn't plan. He just acted. A roar tore from his throat, raw, primal, and impossibly powerful for a 6-year-old. The sound hit the wolves like a physical force, stopping them mid-stride. Their eyes widened. Their bodies stiffened. For a moment, no one moved. Silas's smile faltered. "What?" Selim's voice cut through the tension, sharp and commanding. "Riven again." Now, Riven didn't question it. He roared again, this time louder, deeper, channeling every ounce of fear and fury into the sound. The windows cracked. The wolves stumbled backward, clutching their heads. And in the chaos, Selim moved. He grabbed the tablet from his bag and hurled it at the nearest wolf, hitting him square in the temple. The wolf dropped. "Theron, the fire alarm!" Selim shouted. Theron didn't hesitate. He ran to the wall and smashed the glass cover, pulling the lever. Sirens blared. Sprinklers erupted from the ceiling, drenching the room. The confusion bought them seconds. "Run!" Riven screamed. They bolted. Not toward the elevator, that was blocked. Not toward the stairs, that would be a death trap. Toward the panic room. The door was hidden behind a bookshelf in their mother's office. If they could just reach it. A wolf lunged from the side, jaws snapping. Riven shoved Theron out of the way, taking the hit himself. Pain exploded across his shoulder as teeth grazed his skin. He screamed. Riven. Selim grabbed a lamp and swung it like a bat, smashing it into the wolf's head. The wolf yelped and released him. Riven scrambled to his feet, blood streaming down his arm. Go, go, go. They burst into the office. Selim slammed the door behind them and locked it. The bookshelf. Riven gasped, clutching his shoulder. Move it. Together, they shoved the heavy bookshelf aside, revealing the reinforced steel door behind it. Selim punched in the code with shaking fingers. The lock clicked. The door opened. They tumbled inside, just as the office door exploded inward. Silas stood in the doorway, his expression no longer amused. He was furious. You're only delaying the inevitable, he snarled. Riven met his gaze, blood dripping from his shoulder, defiance burning in his storm-gray eyes. Come and get us. And then he slammed the panic room door shut. 1:15 p.m. En route to the penthouse, Aveline drove like a woman possessed. She didn't care about traffic lights, didn't care about speed limits, didn't care about anything except getting to her sons. Her team was scattered, some still fighting at the docks, others dead. She was alone, but she wasn't helpless. Her phone buzzed. She answered without looking. Aveline, Draven's voice was frantic. I just got word. The penthouse. I know. I'm almost there. They have a 12-minute head start. If they extract the boys. They won't. How can you be sure? Because they're my sons, Aveline said, her voice cold and certain. And they know how to survive. She ended the call and pressed the accelerator harder. Inside the panic room. The room was small, barely 10 feet by 10 feet, but it was a fortress. Reinforced steel walls, no windows, a ventilation system that couldn't be breached, and enough supplies to last a week. Riven leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Blood seeped through his fingers where he clutched his shoulder. Selim was already pulling out the emergency medical kit. Let me see. Riven moved his hand. The bite wasn't deep, more of a graze, but it was still bleeding. Selim cleaned it quickly, his hand steady despite the fear in his eyes. You're lucky. Another inch and he would have hit the artery. Feels lucky, Riven muttered. Theron sat in the corner, hugging his knees, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry I froze. I should have done something. You did, Riven said firmly. You hit the fire alarm. You bought us time. But you got hurt. And I'd do it again. Riven moved beside him, wrapping his good arm around his little brother. We're alive, Theron. That's what matters. Selim finished bandaging Riven's shoulder and sat back. Mom will come. You know she will. I know, Riven said. But we can't just sit here. We need a plan. There's no way out, Theron said, his voice small. We're trapped. We're protected, Selim corrected. There's a difference. He pulled out a backup tablet from the supplies. Smaller, older, but functional. The panic room has a separate security feed. I can see what's happening outside. He pulled up the camera footage. The office was trashed. The bookshelf had been shoved aside, and wolves were pacing in front of the panic room door like caged animals. And in the center of it all stood Silas. He wasn't trying to break down the door. He was just waiting. What's he doing? Theron asked. Selim frowned. I don't know, but it's not good. Silas pulled out his phone and made a call. Selim quickly accessed the building's communication grid, piggybacking on the signal. Silas's voice crackled through the tablet's speaker. How long until the charges are ready? A pause. 10 minutes? Make it 5. I don't care if it brings down half the floor. Just get that door open. Selim's face went pale. They're going to blow the door. Riven's jaw tightened. How long do we have? 5 minutes. Maybe less. Then we need to be ready. Ready for what? Theron asked, his voice shaking. We're 6 years old. We can't fight a dozen wolves. Riven looked at his brothers, really looked at them. Selim, who could outsmart anyone. Theron, who could charm his way out of anything. And himself, who would die before he let anyone hurt them. We might be 6, Riven said quietly, but we're not helpless. We have something they don't. What? Selim asked. Each other. He stood, pulling them both to their feet. Selim, is there any way to override the door's locking mechanism from here? Selim's eyes widened. You want to open the door? Not yet. But when Mom gets here, when she's in position, we need to be ready to move fast. That's insane. That's strategy. Riven's eyes burned with determination. They think we're scared, weak, trapped. Let them think that. And when the moment comes, we hit them hard. Selim stared at him for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, I can rig the door to open on command. But it'll only work once. Once is all we need. Theron wiped his eyes. What do I do? Riven gripped his shoulder. You stay close to me. And when I say run, you run. Got it. Got it. Selim's fingers flew across the tablet, typing code faster than most adults could read. Done. The door will open when I press this. He showed them a red button on the screen. But Riven, if this doesn't work. It will. How can you be sure? Riven's voice was steady, certain. Because Mom's coming. And when she gets here, there won't be a wolf alive who can stop her. 1:20 p.m. The penthouse lobby. Aveline burst through the front entrance, her gun drawn. The lobby was a war zone. Bodies, human and wolf, littered the floor. Broken glass crunched under her boots. Blood stained the marble. She moved through it like a ghost, her senses on high alert. 2 wolves emerged from the stairwell. She didn't hesitate. 2 shots. 2 bodies. She kept moving. The elevator was destroyed. So she took the stairs, her heart pounding with every step. Her calm crackled. Aveline, it was Clara, her voice weak and pained. They're on the 15th floor, the panic room. I know. Are you hurt? I'll alive. Just get the boys. I will. Aveline reached the 15th floor. The hallway was empty. Too empty. She moved toward her office, every muscle coiled and ready. The door was open. Inside, she could see them. 6 wolves, Silas, and a pile of explosives wired to the panic room door. Silas looked up as she entered. He smiled. Right on time. Aveline raised her gun, aiming directly at his head. Step away from that door. Or what? You'll shoot me? Go ahead. But the moment you pull that trigger, my wolves will detonate the charges, and your sons will be buried under a ton of steel and concrete. Aveline's finger tightened on the trigger. Silas laughed. You can't win this, Aveline. Surrender and I'll let them live. Liar. Perhaps. But can you really take that chance? Her mind raced. 6 wolves. Silas. Explosives. She couldn't take them all before they blew the door. But she didn't have to, because at that moment the panic room door clicked and opened. Silas's eyes widened. What? Riven stepped out first, his eyes burning gold, and he roared. The sound was deafening, a wave of alpha power that shouldn't have been possible from a child. The wolves staggered, clutching their heads. Aveline moved. She fired once, twice, 3 times, dropping wolves with precision. Selim threw something small and metallic at the explosives. It was a jamming device. The wire sparked. The charges went dead. And Theron, brave, terrified Theron, screamed at the top of his lungs. Mom! Aveline reached them in seconds, positioning herself between her sons and Silas. Get back inside. Now. We're not leaving you, Riven said. I said now. Draven's voice boomed from the doorway. She's not alone. Aveline's heart leapt. Draven stood in the entrance, flanked by Kaelin and Merrick, all 3 of them bloodied but alive. Silas's confidence faltered. You're too late, Tyrion. I've already won. Have you? Draven moved forward, his eyes blazing. Because from where I'm standing, you're outnumbered, outmatched, and out of time. Silas pulled a knife from his belt. Then let's end this. He lunged, not at Draven, at Aveline. But Riven was faster. He threw himself between them, and the knife meant for his mother's heart buried itself in his side. Time stopped. Aveline screamed. Draven roared, a sound of pure, unbridled fury. And in that moment, the Alpha King's control shattered. Chapter 9. The world moved in slow motion. Aveline watched the knife pierce Riven's side, watching her son's eyes widen in shock. I watched him crumple to the floor, blood blooming across his shirt like a crimson flower. And then time snapped back into brutal, horrifying focus. Riven. She dropped to her knees beside him, her hands pressing against the wound, trying desperately to stem the bleeding. His eyes found hers, those storm gray eyes so much like his father's. "Mom," he whispered. "I'm okay. You're not okay. You're not," her voice broke. "Stay with me, baby. Stay with me." Behind her, Draven transformed, not into his wolf, into something far more terrifying. Pure, uncontrolled rage. His eyes blazed golden fire. His voice dropped to a guttural snarl that made the windows rattle. "You hurt my son." Silas stumbled backward, his confidence finally cracking. "I was aiming for... I don't care." Draven moved like death incarnate. He grabbed Silas by the throat and lifted him off the ground with one hand. "You came into my mate's home. You threatened my children. And now you've spilled my son's blood." Silas clawed at Draven's hand, gasping for air. "Kill me and the Vale family. We'll hunt you forever." "Let them try." Draven's grip tightened. But then, "Dad, stop." The voice was weak, pained, but unmistakable. "Riven." Draven's head snapped toward his son. Riven lay in Avelini's arms, his face pale but his eyes clear. "Don't kill him like this. He tried to take you from us," Draven said, his voice shaking with barely restrained fury. "He hurt you. I know, but you're better than him. Prove it." The words hit Draven like a physical blow. His hand trembled, and then, with visible effort, he dropped Silas to the floor. Silas gasped, clutching his throat. "Kaelin," Draven said, his voice cold and commanding. "Bind him. Silver chains. He doesn't move, doesn't speak, doesn't breathe without my permission." "With pleasure," Kaelin growled, moving forward. Draven crossed to Riven in 3 strides, dropping to his knees beside Aveline. His hands hovered over his son, unsure, trembling. "How bad is it?" "Bad," Aveline said, her voice tight. "The blade's still in. If I pull it out, he'll bleed faster." "I know." Draven looked at Merrick. "Call Dr. Thorne. Tell her it's an emergency. Tell her to bring everything." "She's 20 minutes out," Merrick said. "Then we keep him stable for 20 minutes. Draven's eyes moved to Riven's face. "You're going to be okay, son. Do you hear me? You're going to be okay." Riven tried to smile. "I know, because you're here. Both of you." Tears streamed down Avelini's face. "Don't talk. Save your strength. I need to tell you something. Later, when you're healed." "No, now." Riven's hand found hers, squeezing weakly. "I was wrong. About Dad. He's not a bad person. He's just a person who made mistakes." Draven's jaw clenched, his own eyes wet. "Riven, and you're trying. I see it. We all do. Don't forgive me because you're hurt," Draven said hoarsely. "Don't. I'm not forgiving you because I'm hurt. I'm forgiving you because you came. When it mattered, you came." The words shattered something inside Draven. He took Riven's other hand, holding it carefully, as if it were made of glass. "I will always come for you. Always. I swear it." Riven's eyes fluttered closed. "Good. Because I think I might like having a dad." "Riven." Avelini's voice rose in panic. "Riven, stay with me." His breathing was shallow. His pulse was weak. Selim appeared at Avelini's side, his face streaked with tears, but his voice steady. The knife hit his lower abdomen. It missed the major organs, but he's losing blood fast. "We need to slow his heart rate." "How?" Aveline demanded. "Alpha command. It can force a physiological response." "Dad, you need to tell his body to slow down, to conserve energy." Draven stared at his son's pale face. "I've never done that on a child. If I push too hard..." "Then don't push too hard," Selim said. "But we don't have a choice." Draven nodded slowly. He leaned close to Riven, his voice dropping into that deep, resonant alpha tone that could command the very soul. "Riven, hear me. Your heart will slow. Your breathing will be steady. Your body will heal. You are strong. You are mine. And you will survive." The words wrapped around Riven like a blanket. His breathing evened out. His pulse stabilized. Aveline let out a shaky breath. It's working. How long will it last? Draven asked Selim. Long enough. I hope. Theron crept forward, his eyes red and swollen. Is Riven going to die? No, Aveline said fiercely. No, he's not. Theron knelt beside them, taking Riven's hand. You have to wake up, Riven. You have to. Because I can't be the protector. I'm not strong like you. You're stronger than you think, Draven said gently. You pulled that fire alarm. You gave your brothers time. That was brave. But Riven got hurt because of me. No. Aveline cupped Theron's face. Riven got hurt because he loves you. Because he's your big brother. And that's not your fault. Do you understand? Theron nodded, tears streaming down his face. They stayed like that. All 5 of them huddled together on the blood-stained floor, until the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Dr. Isla Thorne burst into the room, a medical bag in each hand. She was a wolf, one of Draven's pack, with sharp eyes and even sharper instincts. Move, she ordered, dropping to her knees beside Riven. Aveline and Draven reluctantly stepped back. Isla worked with practiced efficiency, assessing the wound, checking vitals, and preparing instruments. The blade lodged against his kidney. If I pull it wrong, he'll hemorrhage. I need to operate. Now. Here. Aveline asked. I don't have a choice. He won't survive transport. Isla looked at Draven. Clear the room. Everyone out except the parents. I'm staying, Selim said. No. I'm staying. His voice was firm. I've been studying anatomy for 2 years. I can help. Isla stared at him for a moment, then nodded. Fine. But you do exactly as I say. Theron clung to Aveline. I don't want to leave. You have to, baby. Just for a little while. Kaelin stepped forward. I'll take him, and I'll make sure he's safe. Aveline looked at Draven, who nodded. Reluctantly, she released Theron into Kaelin's arms. I'll be right here when you come back, she promised. I swear. Theron nodded, burying his face in Kaelin's shoulder as he was carried from the room. The surgery took 43 minutes. 43 minutes of Aveline holding Draven's hand so tightly that her knuckles turned white. 43 minutes of Selim, assisting with steady hands and a sharp mind. 43 minutes of praying to gods she wasn't sure she believed in. And finally, Isla leaned back, exhaling. He's stable. The blade is out. The bleeding is controlled. He'll need rest. Lots of it. But he'll live. Aveline collapsed against Draven, sobbing with relief. Draven's arms wrapped around her, and for the first time in 6 years, she let herself fall apart in his embrace. He's okay, Draven whispered into her hair. He's okay. Isla cleaned her instruments, glancing at Selim. You did well, kid. Ever thought about becoming a doctor? Selim adjusted his glasses. I'm 6. So, Mozart was composing symphonies at 5. Despite everything, Selim smiled. I'll think about it. Isla stood, packing her supplies. He'll sleep for a few hours. When he wakes, he'll be weak. No shifting, no running, no physical exertion for at least 2 weeks. He won't like that, Aveline said, wiping her eyes. He doesn't have a choice. Isla's expression softened. He's a fighter, Aveline. Just like his mother. Aveline nodded, unable to speak. After Isla left, Aveline and Draven sat on either side of Riven's makeshift bed, a couch that had been cleared and cushioned. His breathing was steady. His color was returning. He looked so small, so fragile. I almost lost him, Aveline whispered. Because of me. Because I thought I could handle this alone. You didn't lose him, Draven said. And this isn't your fault, isn't it? If I just... Aveline. Draven turned her to face him. Stop. You did everything right. You protected them. You fought for them. And when it mattered most, they fought too. Because you taught them how. They shouldn't have to fight. They're children. They're our children. And whether we like it or not, they were born into a world that demands strength. His voice softened. But they also have something most wolves don't. What? Parents who would burn the world down to keep them safe. Aveline's eyes met his, and in that moment, the walls between them crumbled completely. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. How to let you back in. How to trust that you won't forget me again. You don't have to know. Not yet. Just let me stay. Let me prove that I'm not going anywhere. Aveline looked at their son, sleeping peacefully between them, and she made a choice. Okay. Draven's eyes widened. Okay. Okay. You can stay. But if you hurt them, if you hurt me, I won't. I swear on my life, Aveline. I won't. She nodded, leaning her head against his shoulder. And for the first time in 6 years, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Hope. Across the room, bound in silver chains, Silas watched them with cold, calculating eyes. He'd lost this battle, but the war was far from over. His family would come for him. They would see his failure, and they would finish what he'd started. The Sterling family thought they'd won, but Silas knew the truth. This was only the beginning. Chapter 10. 3 days passed. 3 days of healing, of watching Riven slowly regain his strength, of the family learning how to exist together in this strange, fragile new reality. Aveline barely left Riven's side. She watched him sleep, counted his breaths, changed his bandages with gentle hands. And when he finally woke, truly woke, with clear eyes and a weak smile, she cried tears of relief she had known she was still holding. "Mom," Riven had whispered, his voice raspy. "You look terrible." She'd laughed through her tears. "You got stabbed and you're critiquing my appearance. Someone has to." Even Draven had smiled at that. Now, as dawn broke on the 4th day, Aveline stood on the balcony of a safe house Draven had secured, a sprawling estate in the mountains, far from a city, surrounded by wolves loyal to him. The penthouse was a crime scene. The building was compromised. They couldn't go back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "You should be sleeping." Aveline didn't turn. She'd felt Draven approach, the bond between them growing stronger with each passing day, like a wound slowly knitting itself back together. "I can't sleep." "Riven's fine. Isla checked on him an hour ago. His vitals are strong." "I know. Then what's keeping you awake?" Aveline gripped the railing. "Silas." Draven moved beside her, his expression hardening. "He's locked in the basement. Silver chains. Iron bars. He's not going anywhere. That's not what worries me." "Then what has—" She finally looked at him. "What are you going to do with him?" Draven's jaw tightened. "What he deserves, which is execution." The word hung in the cold morning air like a blade. Aveline had expected it, had even agreed with it, in the dark hours after Riven's surgery, when rage had burned hotter than reason. But now, in the light of day, with her son safe and sleeping. "When?" she asked quietly. "Today. The council is convening at noon. They'll hear the charges, review the evidence, and pass judgment." The council? The Northern Territorial Council. It's made up of the alphas from the 5 major packs in this region. When a crime is committed that affects multiple territories, like Silas's attack, they have the authority to pass a sentence. Aveline frowned. "And they'll vote for execution?" "They will when they hear what he did. Attempted kidnapping of alpha heirs. Murder of pack members. Conspiracy too." "Will the boys have to testify?" Draven paused. "Normally, yes. But given their age and what they've been through, I can petition for recorded testimony instead." "Do it." "Aveline." "I won't put them in a room with him again, Draven. I will make them relive that." He nodded slowly. "All right. I'll handle it." "And what about his family? The rest of the Vales?" Draven's expression darkened. "That's complicated." "How complicated?" "The Vale family has 3 remaining members in positions of power. Silas's sister, Varia, his cousin Lorcan, and his uncle Eldrick. They're all dangerous, all influential, and all likely to seek revenge once Silas is executed. So this doesn't end with his death." "No, it doesn't." Aveline exhaled slowly. "Then what do we do?" Draven turned to her, his ice blue eyes serious. "We prepare. We strengthen our alliances. And we make it clear that anyone who comes for our family will face the same fate as Silas. Our family." The words settled over her like a warm blanket. "Not her family. Not his family. Our family." "I need to be there," Aveline said. "At the council meeting." "Aveline." "I need to be there, Draven. Not as your mate. As a mother. As the woman he tried to destroy." I need to look those alphas in the eye and make sure they understand what he did. Draven studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, you'll come. But there are rules, protocols. The council doesn't take kindly to outsiders. I'm not an outsider. I'm the mother of your heirs. A slow smile spread across Draven's face. That you are. Noon. The council chamber. The chamber was ancient, carved from stone deep within the mountain. It looked more like a cathedral than a courtroom. Massive pillars rose toward a vaulted ceiling. Torches burned in iron sconces, casting flickering shadows across the walls. And at the center of the room sat 5 thrones, each one occupied by an alpha. Draven sat in the first, the throne of winter, carved from pale stone and draped with furs. His expression was cold, regal, every inch the Alpha King. To his right sat Alpha Tyrion Greaves of the Eastern Ridges, a woman with silver hair and eyes like molten gold. She was older than Draven, but no less powerful. To Draven's left sat Alpha Bastion, Cain of the Southern Hollow, a massive man with a scarred face and a reputation for brutality. Beyond him sat Alpha Eloan Sayer of the Western Valley, graceful, calculating, and rumored to be the most cunning of them all. And finally, in the last throne, sat Alpha Nikolai Cross of the Northern Reach, young, ambitious, and watching everything with sharp, assessing eyes. Aveline stood at the base of the dais, flanked by Kaelin and Merrick. She dressed carefully for this, a charcoal suit, her hair pulled back, every inch the CEO she'd become. She looked human, unthreatening, but the way she held herself, the steel in her spine, the fire in her eyes, made it clear she was anything but. The chamber doors opened. 2 guards dragged Silas in, his hands and feet bound in silver chains. He looked worse for wear, bruised, bloodied, diminished. But his eyes were still cold, still calculating. He was thrown to his knees in the center of the chamber. Draven stood. Silas Vale, you stand accused of conspiracy, attempted murder, and the attempted abduction of 3 Alpha heirs. How do you plead? Silas's lips curled into a sneer. I plead that you're all fools. A ripple of shock moved through the chamber. Alpha Bastion leaned forward. You dare. I dare because it's the truth, Silas interrupted. You think this is about revenge? About my sister? You're wrong. This was always about balance. Balance. Eloan's voice was soft, dangerous. Explain. Silas looked directly at Draven. You rejected your fated mate 6 years ago, Tyrion. You broke the oldest law of our kind, the sanctity of the bond. And what happened? Nothing. No punishment. No consequences. You just moved on. I was cursed, Draven said coldly, by your sister, and you killed her for it. So we're even. We are not even, Draven snarled. Evania tried to steal my life, my mate, my future. She deserved what she got. And what about Aveline? Silas's eyes moved to her. What about the woman you threw away? The woman you left pregnant and alone? Where were the consequences for that? Aveline's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Draven's voice was ice. I am paying for those mistakes every day. But this trial is not about my past. It's about your crimes. My crimes, Silas repeated. You mean the crimes of trying to restore balance? The Vale family has served the Pax for generations. We've bled for them, died for them. And when my sister was murdered, what did the council do? Nothing. You let her killer walk free because he wears a crown. Nikolai spoke for the first time, his voice thoughtful. Do you believe yourself justified? I believe the laws apply to everyone. Or they apply to no one. The chamber fell silent. Tyrion Greaves leaned back on her throne. He makes a point. Draven's eyes snapped to her. Excuse me. The law is clear, Draven. A fated mate bond cannot be severed without cause. And while the curse may explain your actions, it does not absolve them. I didn't know. Ignorance is not innocence. Bastion rumbled his agreement. The boy is right. We've been too lenient with you, Tyrion. You're an alpha, yes, but that doesn't put you above the law. Draven's hands clenched. So what are you suggesting? That Silas goes free. No, Eloan said. His crimes are real. But so are yours. Aveline had heard enough. She stepped forward. May I speak? All 5 alphas turned to look at her. Draven's expression was wary. Aveline. May I speak? She repeated, her voice steady. Tyrion studied her. You are not packed. You have no standing here. I am the mother of 3 alpha heirs. I have everything standing. Bastion's eyes gleamed with interest. Let her speak. Tyrion nodded slowly. Very well. But choose your words carefully, human. Aveline met her gaze without flinching. I'm not human. I'm a wolf. I've just been living among them. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. And I'm not here to defend Draven, Aveline continued. What he did 6 years ago was unforgivable. He threw me away. He let me suffer. He didn't fight for me when I needed him most. Draven flinched, but said nothing. But, Aveline's voice hardened. That does not give Silas Vale the right to use my children as pawns. He didn't come for me to seek justice. He came to take 3 innocent boys and turn them into weapons. She turned to face Silas. You want to talk about balance? About consequences? Then let's talk about yours. You broke into my home. You murdered my guards. You terrorized my children. And when my 6-year-old son stood between you and me, you stabbed him. Her voice rose. Where is the balance in that? Where is the justice in attacking children to settle a grudge against their father? Silas's expression didn't change. They're not children. They're alpha heirs. They're weapons waiting to be forged. They're my sons, Aveline said, her voice shaking with fury. And you tried to take them from me. She turned back to the council. So yes, Draven made mistakes. Terrible ones. And maybe he deserves to answer for them. But not today. Today, you're judging Silas Vale. And if you let him go because you want to punish Draven, then you're no better than he is. Silence. Tyrion's eyes narrowed. You have fire, Aveline Marrowyn. I see why Draven chose you. He didn't choose me, Aveline said quietly. The bond did. He just forgot for a while. Nikolai leaned forward. And now? Has he remembered? Aveline's eyes found Draven's. Yes, he has. The moment stretched between them, raw and honest. Then Bastion slammed his fist on the armrest of his throne. Enough. We're not here to arbitrate a lover's quarrel. We're here to pass judgment. He looked at Silas. You attacked alpha heirs. That alone is a death sentence. The rest is irrelevant. Agreed, Eloin said. Agreed, Nikolai echoed. Tyrion was the last to speak. Agreed. Silas Vale, you are hereby sentenced to death by silver. The execution will be carried out at sundown. Silas didn't flinch, didn't beg. He just smiled. You think killing me ends this? My family will come. And when they do, you'll all burn. Let them come, Draven said coldly. We'll be ready. The guards dragged Silas from the chamber, his laughter echoing off the stone walls. As the doors closed behind him, Tyrion stood. This council is adjourned. But Draven, we will speak again. Soon. About your past. And your future. It wasn't a request. It was a warning. Outside the chamber, Aveline sagged against the wall, her entire body trembling. Draven appeared beside her. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. You made enemies there. I made a point. She looked up at him. And I meant what I said. You hurt me, Draven. Deeply. But that doesn't mean I'll let anyone else hurt our sons. Our sons, Draven repeated softly. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Whether I like it or not. He smiled, small and genuine. For what it's worth. I'm glad you were there. You reminded me why I fell in love with you in the first place. Aveline's breath caught. Don't. You're fierce. Brave. And you don't back down. Not even when you're terrified. I wasn't terrified. Liar. She laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in days. Okay. Maybe a little. Draven's expression softened. Come on. Let's go home. The boys will want to know what happened. Home, Aveline echoed. Where's that exactly? Wherever we are. Together. And despite everything, despite the pain, the fear, the uncertainty, Aveline found herself believing him. Chapter 11. Sundown came too quickly. The execution grounds were ancient, a stone circle carved into the mountainside, overlooking a valley that stretched endlessly toward the horizon. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of amber and crimson, casting long shadows across the weathered stones. It was beautiful, and it was about to become a place of death. Aveline stood at the edge of the circle, her arms wrapped around herself against the evening chill. She'd left the boys at the safe house with Isla and Clara, despite Riven's protests. "I want to see him pay," Riven had said, his eyes hard. "No, you don't," Aveline had replied gently. "You think you do. But watching someone die, it changes you. And I won't let that happen to you. Not yet." Now, surrounded by wolves she didn't know and traditions she didn't understand, Aveline wondered if she'd made the right choice coming here herself. Draven appeared at her side, his presence solid and grounding. "You don't have to watch," he said quietly. "Yes, I do." "Why?" "Because I need to see it end. I need to know he can't hurt them again." Draven nodded. "Then stay close to me." The crowd parted as the council alphas entered the circle, taking their positions at the cardinal points: north, south, east, west. Draven stood in the center, the executioner's role falling to him as the alpha whose family had been wronged. Two guards dragged Silas into the circle. He was stripped to the waist, his wrists bound behind his back with silver chains that smoked against his skin. His face was pale but defiant, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found Aveline. He smiled. It was a cold, knowing smile that made her blood run cold. "Any last words?" Draven asked, his voice carrying across the circle. Silas's gaze never left Aveline. "Just one piece of advice for you, Luna." The title was mocking. "Poisonous. Watch your back. My family won't forgive me. And they don't forget." "Neither do we," Draven said coldly. He drew a silver blade from his belt, long, curved, etched with runes that glowed faintly in the dying light. The crowd fell silent. Draven raised the blade. "Silas Vale, for your crimes against the innocent, against the laws of our kind, and against the sanctity of family, you are sentenced to death. May the ancestors judge you harshly." Silas closed his eyes, and Draven struck. The blade was swift, clean, merciful in its efficiency. Silas's body crumpled to the ground, his blood pooling across the ancient stones. It was over, but Aveline didn't feel relieved. She felt hollow, because Silas had been right about one thing. This wasn't over. After the execution, the gathered wolves dispersed, returning to their territories, their packs, their lives. But Draven's inner circle remained: Kaelin, Merrick, and a handful of others who had proven their loyalty. They gathered in a meeting room in the safe house, maps and reports spread across a heavy oak table. "The Vale family will retaliate," Kaelin said, his voice grim. "It's only a question of when." "And how," Merrick added. "Varia Vale is known for patience. She won't rush in blindly like her brother did. She'll plan. She'll wait. And when she strikes, it'll be devastating." Draven leaned over the table, his jaw tight. "Then we strike first." "How?" Aveline asked. "We don't even know where she is." "I do," a new voice said. Everyone turned. Standing in the doorway was a woman Aveline had never seen before. She was tall, elegant, with midnight black hair and eyes the color of storm clouds. She wore leather armor that fit her like a second skin, and she moved with the grace of a predator. "Who are you?" Draven demanded. The woman smiled. "My name is Ariva, and I'm Varia Vale's former second." The room erupted. "Seize her," Kaelin barked, moving forward. But Draven raised a hand. "Wait. She's a Vale." Merrick growled. "She could be a spy." "I'm not a spy," Ariva interrupted calmly. "I'm a defector. Why should we believe you?" Aveline asked, her voice sharp. Ariva met her gaze. "Because Varia Vale doesn't just want revenge. She wants to destroy everything Draven has built. She wants to dismantle the Northern Territories, piece by piece, until nothing remains but ashes and blood. And you're telling us this out of the goodness of your heart?" Draven's voice was skeptical. "No, I'm telling you this because Varia killed my sister. She accused her of being a traitor, of sympathizing with you after Silas's capture, and she executed her publicly to make a point." Ariva's voice cracked, just slightly. "So no, this isn't altruism. This is revenge." Silence filled the room. Draven studied her carefully. "What do you know?" "Everything. Varia's location, her allies, her plans. And you'll share this information with us?" "On one condition." "Name it." Ariva's eyes hardened. When you take her down, I get to be there. I get to watch her fall. Draven glanced at Aveline, who gave a slight nod. All right, Draven said. You have a deal. But if you betray us, I won't. You'd better not. Because if you do, what Varia did to your sister will look like mercy compared to what I'll do to you. Ariva didn't flinch. Understood. She pulled a flash drive from her pocket and tossed it onto the table. Everything you need is on there. Locations, guard rotations, weaknesses. Varia's planning a strike in 72 hours. If you want to stop her, you need to move now. Kalen picked up the drive, turning it over in his hands. And if this is a trap, then I die with you, Ariva said simply. Which is why it's not. Draven nodded slowly. Kalen, verify the information. Cross-reference it with our intelligence. If it checks out, we start planning. And if it doesn't, Draven's eyes flicked to Ariva. Then we have a problem. Late that night, Aveline found herself in the safe house's library, unable to sleep. The boys were resting, Riven healing, Selim reading, Theron finally succumbing to exhaustion. She should have been with them, but she needed space, needed air. I needed to process everything that had happened. The door opened softly. Draven, of course. You're avoiding sleep again, he said, closing the door behind him. I'm thinking about everything. Silas, Varia, the fact that our sons are caught in the middle of a war they didn't ask for. Draven moved to stand beside her at the window. I wish I could tell you it gets easier, that the danger will pass. But it won't. No, it won't. This is our world, Aveline. Violence, politics, blood. It's what we are. It's what you are, she corrected. I tried to escape it. I built a life in the human world. And did it work? She laughed bitterly. No, because even in the human world, I couldn't escape what I am. What they are. Maybe escaping isn't the answer. Then what is? Draven turned to face her fully. Fighting, not just to survive, but to build something better. For them. For us. And you think we can do that? Together? I think we're stronger together than we ever were apart. Aveline's throat tightened. 6 years ago, I would have believed that without question. And now I'm scared. Scared that this won't last. That the curse will come back. That you'll forget me again. That. Draven cupped her face in his hands, silencing her. Aveline, listen to me. The curse is broken. Ivania is dead. And I remember everything. Every moment. Every word. Every touch. His thumb brushed across her cheek. I remember the night I marked you. The way you looked at me like I was your entire world. And I remember the morning I destroyed that. The way your eyes went hollow when I didn't recognize you. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Then you remember how much you hurt me. Every day. And I will spend the rest of my life making up for it. If you'll let me. I don't know if I can. I'm not asking you to decide now. I'm just asking you to let me try. Aveline closed her eyes, leaning into his touch despite every wall she'd built. The boys need you, she whispered. And what about you? Do you need me? The question hung in the air. Aveline opened her eyes, looking up at him, at the man who had been her everything and her greatest pain. I don't want to need you, she admitted. But I do. And I hate it. I know. And I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you. I know that too. Then why are you still here? Draven's eyes burned with an intensity that stole her breath. Because love doesn't end just because it's hard. Because the bond between us is still there, Aveline. Damaged. Scarred. But still there. And I will fight for it until my last breath. Even if I never love you the way I did before. Even then, the words broke something inside her. And before she could stop herself, she kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate. Angry. 6 years of pain and longing and fury poured into a single moment. Draven responded instantly, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her closer as if he could fuse them back together through sheer will. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Aveline pressed her forehead against his chest. I'm still angry at you. I know. And I still don't trust you completely. I know. But I'm willing to try. For them. And maybe for us. Draven's arms tightened around her. That's all I'm asking. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the quiet darkness. And for the first time in 6 years, Aveline felt like she was finally coming home. But across the mountains, in a fortress carved from black stone, Varia Vale received word of her brother's death. She didn't cry, didn't rage. She simply smiled, a cold, calculated smile. "Oriva's betrayal is confirmed," she asked her second. "Yes, my lady." She went to Draven. "Give him the flash drive." "Good." The second blinked. "My lady, let them think they have the advantage. Let them believe Oriva's information is genuine. But it is genuine. Exactly. Which is why they'll never see the real attack coming." Varia stood, moving to a map of the Northern Territories spread across her war table. She placed 3 black stones on the map, one on Draven's territory, one in the safe house, and one in a small human city called Vancouver. "Draventarion took my sister, my brother, my legacy." She looked up, her eyes glowing with feral light. "So I'll take everything he loves. And when he has nothing left, then I'll take his life." Chapter 12. 48 hours until Varia's strike. Draven stood in the war room, surrounded by maps, reports, and the faces of wolves he trusted with his life. Kaelin had spent the last 2 days verifying every piece of information on Oriva's flash drive. Guard rotations, supply routes, structural weaknesses in Varia's compound. Everything checked out, which was exactly what made Draven uneasy. "It's too clean," he said, his fingers drumming against the table. "Too perfect." "Maybe she's just that good," Kaelin offered. Oriva was Varia's second for 5 years. She'd know every detail. Or maybe Varia wanted her to know every detail, Aveline said from the doorway. Everyone turned. She walked into the room, dressed in tactical gear that Draven had provided, reinforced, fitted, designed for a wolf in combat. She looked every inch the warrior she'd become. "You think it's a trap?" Merrick asked. "I think it's too convenient," Aveline said. "Oriva shows up right after Silas's execution. She has all the information we need. She's motivated by revenge. It's the perfect defection story." "Because it's true," Oriva said, entering behind Aveline. "I'm not here to deceive you. I'm here to end Varia. And we're supposed to just trust you." Aveline challenged. "No, you're supposed to verify what I've told you," which you have. "And now you're supposed to act before she does." Draven studied Oriva carefully. "What's Varia's target?" "You, your pack, your territory. She wants to dismantle everything you've built." "That's vague." "That's the truth. Varia doesn't share her full plans with anyone, not even me. But I know her methods. She strikes fast, hard, and from multiple directions." "Multiple directions," Selim said from the corner. Everyone looked at him. He'd been quiet throughout the meeting, sitting with his tablet, analyzing data. But now his eyes were sharp behind his glasses. "What are you thinking?" Draven asked. Selim pulled up a map on the large screen. "Oriva's information gives us one target, Varia's compound in the Black Ridge Mountains. But if she's planning to strike from multiple directions, that means she has at least 2 other teams positioned elsewhere." He zoomed out on the map, adding markers. "Draven's main territory is here. The safe house where we're staying is here. And our original home in Vancouver is here. 3 points forming a triangle. She's going to hit all 3, Aveline breathed. Simultaneously, Selim confirmed. "It's the only strategy that makes sense. Divide our forces. Force us to choose what to protect." Draven's jaw tightened. "The compound is a diversion." "Not a diversion," Oriva corrected. "A sacrifice. Varia knows you'll come for her. So she'll position herself at the compound with minimal defenses. When you breach it, you'll find her, but you'll also be too far away to protect what really matters." "The boys," Aveline said, her voice cold. "And your pack," Oriva added, looking at Draven. "She'll hit the main territory to destroy your seat of power. And she'll hit the safe house to take the heirs." 3 fronts, Kaelin said grimly. "We can't defend all 3. "Then we don't defend," Draven said. "We attack. All 3 fronts simultaneously." Merrick frowned. "We don't have the numbers. Then we get them." Draven pulled out his phone and began making calls to allied packs, to wolves who owed him favors, to every connection he'd built over a decade of rule. Within an hour, he had commitments. Not enough to win easily, but enough to fight. 24 hours until various strike. The safe house had transformed into a military base. Wolves arrived in waves, some in trucks, some on motorcycles, some simply appearing from the forest in their animal forms. Draven divided them into 3 units. Alpha unit would assault Varia's compound. Draven would lead personally, with Kaelin and half their fighters. Their goal was to capture or kill Varia and dismantle her command structure. Beta unit would defend Draven's main territory. Merrick would command, with a focus on protecting the civilians and critical infrastructure. The Omega unit would secure the safe house and the boys. Aveline would lead, with Ariva as her second and a team of the best fighters Draven had. It was risky. Splitting their forces meant none of the units would be at full strength, but it was the only way to counter Varia's strategy. As the final preparations were made, Aveline found herself in the boys' room. Riven was sitting up in bed, his bandages fresh. He was healing faster than Isla had expected, alpha blood accelerating his recovery. Selim sat beside him, tablet in hand, reviewing defensive protocols. Theron was curled up in a chair, pretending to sleep, but clearly listening to every word. "You're leaving, aren't you?" Riven asked. Aveline sat on the edge of the bed. "Not for long. Just long enough to make sure Varia can't hurt you. You're going to fight her. I'm going to protect you. That's the same thing." Aveline smiled sadly. "I suppose it is." Riven's hand found hers. "Be careful, Mom. Please." "I will. And don't let Dad do anything stupid." She laughed. "I'll try." Selim looked up from his tablet. "We fortified the safe house, reinforced the doors, set up early warning systems. If they breach the perimeter, we'll know." "You're 6 years old, Selim. You shouldn't have to think about perimeters and breach protocols. And yet here we are." The truth of it stung. Theron finally opened his eyes. "When this is over, can we go back to normal?" "What's normal, baby?" Aveline asked gently. "I don't know. School. Ice cream. Not worrying about people trying to kill us." Aveline pulled him into her arms. "I promise, when this is over, we'll find normal again." "Do you mean it?" "I mean it." But even as she said the words, she wondered if normal was even possible anymore. Hour 0. Midnight fell like a blade. Draven stood at the front of Alpha Unit, fully armored, his eyes blazing with alpha power. "Remember," he said to his wolves, "Varia wants us divided. She wants us to be afraid. But we are not afraid. We are the storm. And tonight we bring reckoning." A howl rose from the assembled wolves, primal, unified, powerful. And then they moved. At the safe house, Aveline checked her weapons one last time. Silver bullets, reinforced knives, and a modified tranquilizer gun loaded with concentrated wolfsbane, enough to drop a full-grown alpha. Ariva appeared at her side. "You know how to use all of that?" "I've had 6 years to learn." "Good, because they're coming. I can feel it." Aveline looked at the woman who had once served their enemy. "Why are you really helping us?" Ariva met her gaze. "Because Varia stopped being my alpha the moment she killed my sister. And because I've watched her destroy too many lives, including her own family. You cared about Silas." "I did. Once. But he became as twisted as she is. They both deserve to fall." Aveline nodded slowly. "If you betray us, I won't. But if you do, I want you to know. I will make sure you regret it." Ariva smiled, a cold warrior smile. "I'd expect nothing less." At Draven's main territory, Merrick stood on the battlements, watching the forest. The wind carried the scent of rain. And something else. Smoke. "They're here," he said into his calm north side. "At least 20 contacts." "Hold the line," Draven's voice crackled back. "We're 10 minutes out from the compound." "Copy that." Merrick turned to his wolves. "You heard him. No one gets through. Not one." The wolves shifted, their eyes glowing in the darkness. And then the forest erupted. Various forces poured out like a flood. Wolves, mercenaries, and creatures Merrick couldn't even name. The battle began. At the compound, Draven's unit breached the outer walls with brutal efficiency. But something was wrong. The defenses were minimal. Token even. "It's too easy," Kaelin said, his voice tense. "I know." They pushed deeper, expecting ambushes, traps. Instead, They found empty halls, abandoned rooms, and finally, at the heart of the compound, they found Varia. She sat on a throne of black stone, dressed in armor that gleamed like oil, her expression serene. "Hello, Draven," she said. "Right on time." Draven raised his weapon. "It's over, Varia." "Is it?" She smiled. "Tell me, have you checked on your sons recently?" Draven's blood ran cold. He grabbed his comm Aveline. "Status report." "Static." "Aveline." More static. And then, finally, a voice. But it wasn't Aveline. It was Theron. "Dad, they're inside." At the safe house, chaos reigned. The walls had been breached, not from the outside, but from below. Tunnels. Varia had dug tunnels beneath the safe house, bypassing every defense. Wolves poured into the building, and Aveline's unit fought desperately to hold them back. "Fall back to the panic room," Aveline shouted. "Protect the boys." She fired round after round, silver bullets dropping attackers. But there were too many. Ariva fought beside her, moving with deadly grace. "We need to evacuate," Ariva yelled. "Not without my son." Aveline fought her way through the chaos, reaching the boys' room. Riven, Selim, and Theron were huddled together, Riven holding a makeshift weapon, a broken chair leg. "Mom," Theron cried, "we're leaving. Now." But before they could move, the wall exploded inward, and standing in the rubble surrounded by wolves was a woman who could only be Varia's sister. No, not her sister. A projection. A hologram. Varia's voice echoed through the room. "Did you really think I'd come for them myself? I'm not Silas. I don't make the same mistakes twice." The hologram smiled. "But don't worry. My wolves will take excellent care of your children. And when you've watched everything you love burn, then I'll come for you." Personally, the transmission cut out, and the wolves attacked. Chapter 13. Time fractured into moments of pure survival. Aveline fired her last silver bullet, dropping a wolf mid-lunge. Her gun clicked empty. She threw it aside and drew her knife, the blade singing as it left its sheath. "Stay behind me," she screamed to the boys. But Riven wasn't behind her. He was beside her. The 6-year-old held his makeshift weapon with trembling hands, his eyes blazing gold, not with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Fury. "Riven, get back." No. The word carried weight. Authority. The beginnings of an alpha command that shouldn't have been possible at his age. A wolf lunged at them. Riven didn't retreat. He swung the chair leg with everything he had, catching the wolf across the jaw. The creature yelped, stumbling back. "Touch my family," Riven snarled, his voice deeper than it should be, "and I'll rip your throat out." The wolf hesitated, and in that moment of hesitation, Ariva's blade found its mark. The wolf fell. "We need to move," Ariva shouted over the chaos. "The tunnels, they'll keep coming until we're overwhelmed." "Where?" Aveline demanded, yanking Selim and Theron closer. "Every exit is compromised." "Then we make a new one." Selim's eyes widened. "The north wall. It's reinforced, but there's a weak point where the ventilation system connects. If we can breach it." "Do it," Aveline ordered. Selim ran to the wall, his fingers flying across a control panel Aveline hadn't even known was there. "How do you know about that?" she shouted. "I read the building schematics when we moved in." Selim yelled back. 3 weeks ago. I memorized everything." "Of course you did." The panel beeped. A section of the wall hissed, releasing pressure. "It's opening," Selim called. "But it'll take 30 seconds. 30 seconds. An eternity in combat." Aveline positioned herself between the boys and the advancing wolves, Ariva at her back. "We hold here," Aveline said. "No matter what." "No matter what," Ariva echoed. They fought with everything they had. Aveline's knife found throats, hearts, eyes, anywhere vulnerable. Ariva moved like water, her twin blades dancing through the air, leaving carnage in their wake. But for every wolf they dropped, 2 more appeared. Aveline's arms burned. Her lungs screamed. Blood. Some hers, some theirs slicked her hands. 10 seconds. Selim shouted. A massive wolf broke through their defense, heading straight for Theron. Aveline screamed, diving. But she was too far. The wolf's jaws opened wide. And then Theron did something impossible. He screamed. Not a human scream. A howl. Pure, primal, and filled with power that shook the very foundations of the building. The sound hit the wolf like a physical force, stopping it mid-leap. The creature whimpered, ears flattening, body lowering in submission. Theron's eyes glowed brilliant gold. I said a no. The wolf retreated. Actually, I retreated. From a 6-year-old boy. The walls open. Selim yelled. Go, go, go. Aveline grabbed Theron, who was trembling and staring at his hands in shock. Moo, Ariva shouted, covering their retreat. They poured through the opening into a narrow maintenance corridor. The moment they were through, Selim hit another button. The wall slammed shut behind them, sealing off the wolves. For now, they ran through the darkness, emergency lights flickering overhead. Where does this lead? Aveline gasped. Underground parking garage, Selim panted. There's an exit on the east side. If we can reach the vehicles. An explosion rocked the corridor. The ceiling buckled. Debris rained down. Aveline threw herself over the boys, shielding them with her body. When the dust settled, the path ahead was blocked. The other way. Ariva shouted. They turned and found themselves face to face with a figure emerging from the shadows. A woman. Tall. Elegant. With silver-white hair and eyes like chips of ice. Varia Vale. She wasn't a hologram this time. She was real. And she was smiling. Hello, Aveline, Varia said, her voice smooth as poison. I've been waiting to meet you. At the compound. Draven stood in the empty throne room, Varia's laughter still echoing in his ears from the recording she'd left behind. He'd been played. Completely and utterly played. Sir, Kaelin burst into the room. We've secured the compound. It's empty. She was never here. I know. The boys are under attack. I heard Theron on the comm before it went dead. Draven's hands clenched into fists. His wolf raged beneath his skin, demanding blood, demanding action. But he was too far away. 3 hours minimum to reach the safe house. 3 hours his family didn't have. We need to move, Kaelin said. Now, gather everyone. We run. No vehicles, they're too slow. We shift and we run. Sir, that's over 100 miles. I don't care if it's 1,000. My sons are in danger. We move. Now. Draven's eyes blazed. And anyone who can't keep up gets left behind. At the main territory, Merrick stood atop the battlements, covered in blood and ash. The attack on Draven's territory had been brutal, but ultimately unsuccessful. Various forces had retreated after 20 minutes of fierce fighting, leaving bodies, but accomplishing nothing strategic. It had been a diversion, just like the compound. Status report, Merrick barked into his comm. Perimeter secure. Casualties are minimal. But, sir, we're receiving a distress signal from the safe house. Mark's blood ran cold. The boys, unknown. Signal's weak. But it's bad. Merrick looked at the wolves around him. Exhausted, wounded, barely standing. Who can still fight? 10 hands went up. 10 out of 40. It wasn't enough. But it would have to be. Then we move. Double time. The Alpha's family needs us. Back in the corridor. Aveline positioned herself between Varia and her sons, every muscle in her body coiled to strike. You're a hard woman to kill, Aveline Marrowyn, Varia said, tilting her head. I respect that. Truly. I don't want your respect. No, you want your life. And your sons' lives. And I'm afraid I can't allow that. You'll have to go through me first. Varia's smile widened. I was hoping you'd say that. She moved. Faster than Aveline had ever seen anyone move. One moment Varia was 10 feet away. The next, her hand was around Aveline's throat, slamming her against the wall. Mom, Riven screamed. Aveline clawed at Varia's grip, but it was like iron. I'm going to make this quick, Varia whispered. Because unlike my brother, I don't enjoy suffering. I just enjoy winning. Then you've already lost, Aveline gasped. Have I? Because you forgot one thing. What's that? I'm not alone. Ariva's blade flashed in the dim light, aimed at Varia's spine. But Varia was ready. She released Aveline and spun, catching Ariva's wrist and twisting. Bone cracked. Ariva screamed. Did you really think I didn't know you'd betray me? Varia hissed. I've been planning for your treachery since the day my sister died. She threw Oriva against the opposite wall. The woman crumpled, unconscious. Aveline struggled to her feet, gasping for air. Varia turned back to her. Now, where were we? Right here. The voice came from behind Varia. Riven. He stood there, trembling but defiant, holding something in his hand. A grenade. One of the emergency explosives from the safe house armory. Varia's eyes widened. Boy, don't be foolish. You want to hurt my mom? Riven's voice shook, but his eyes were steady. Then you go through me first. Riven, no. Aveline screamed. But Riven had already pulled the pin. Time slowed. Varia lunged for him. Aveline dove between them. And Selim, brilliant, analytical Selim, grabbed his brothers and yanked them through a service door Aveline hadn't even noticed. The grenade detonated. The corridor erupted in fire and sound and chaos. When the dust settled, Aveline lay on the ground, ears ringing, vision swimming. Varia was gone, fled into the smoke. Oriva groaned nearby, alive but barely. And the boys. Mom, they were there, pulling at her, their faces streaked with soot and tears. I'm okay, Aveline rasped. I'm okay. You're bleeding, Selim said, his voice panicked. She was. A piece of shrapnel had embedded itself in her side. But she was alive. They were all alive. We need to keep moving, Aveline said, forcing herself to stand. Varia won't give up. She's injured too, Riven said, pointing to blood on the floor. I saw her. She's bleeding. Good. Aveline grabbed Oriva, hauling the woman's arm over her shoulder. Selim, lead the way. Riven, Theron, stay close. We're getting out of here. They moved through the smoke and ruin, 3 children and 2 wounded women. A family fighting for survival. Outside the safe house, Draven arrived in wolf form, his massive black beast covering the last 10 miles in minutes that should have been impossible. He shifted mid-run, landing on human feet, his eyes taking in the carnage. The safe house was destroyed. The walls collapsed. Fires burning. Bodies everywhere. Aveline, he roared. Boys. No answer. His heart stopped. And then, Theron's voice. Draven spun. They emerged from the rubble. Aveline supporting Oriva. The boys clustered around them. Alive. Bloody. Bruised. But alive. Draven crossed the distance in seconds, pulling them all into his arms. You're okay, he breathed. You're okay. Barely, Aveline said, wincing. He saw the wound in her side, saw the exhaustion in her eyes. Isla, he called over his shoulder. Now, the pack doctor appeared, already moving toward them. But Aveline's hand gripped Draven's arm. Varia, she's still here. Somewhere. Then I'll find her. No. Aveline's voice was firm despite her pain. Not alone. We will end this together. Draven looked at her. This woman who had survived hell, raised their sons alone, and fought an army to protect them. And he fell in love with her all over again. Together, he agreed. Behind them, Merrick and his reinforcements arrived. Kaelin and the others from the compound weren't far behind. The Sterling pack was uniting, and Varia Vale was about to learn what it meant to threaten their family. In the ruins of the safe house basement, Varia clutched her bleeding shoulder. She'd underestimated them. The woman, the children, especially the children. They were stronger than they should be. Smarter, more dangerous. Her calm crackled. My lady, we need to retreat. We've lost too many. No, Varia said. We don't retreat. We will finish this. But I said we'll finish this. She stood, her eyes blazing with feral determination. She would not fail. Not like Silas. Not like Evania. She would destroy Draventarion. Or she would die trying. Chapter 14. The moon hung full and heavy in the night sky, casting silver light across the ruins of the safe house. It was the kind of moon that called to every wolf, ancient, powerful, impossible to ignore. And tonight, it will witness the end of a war. Isla worked quickly on Aveline's wound, her hands steady despite the chaos around them. The shrapnel missed anything vital, she said, wrapping bandages tight. But you've lost blood. You need rest. Not yet, Aveline said, gritting her teeth as she stood. Not until this is finished. Draven caught her arm. You can barely stand. I can stand well enough to fight. Aveline. Don't. Her eyes met his, fierce and unyielding. Don't ask me to sit this out. She came for my children. I'm ending this. Draven stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Together. Together. Nearby, the boys sat huddled with Isla, being checked for injuries. Riven had bruises blooming across his ribs. Selim's hands were scraped raw. Theron was shaking, the adrenaline finally wearing off. But they were alive. Draven knelt in front of them. I need you three to do something very important. Fight. Riven asked immediately. No. Survive. Riven's face fell. But, listen to me. Draven's voice was gentle but firm. You've already fought. You've already been braver than most adult wolves I know. But this next part, this isn't your battle. She tried to take us, Riven argued. How is that not our battle? Because you're 6 years old, Aveline said, moving beside Draven. And because we've already almost lost you once. I won't risk it again. But you're hurt, Theron whispered, his eyes welling with tears. What if something happens to you? Aveline cupped his face. Then your father will protect me. And if something happens to him, I'll protect him. That's what mates do. The word hung in the air. Mates. She'd said it without thinking, without hesitation. Draven's eyes widened slightly, hope flickering in their depths. But there was no time to dwell on it. Kalen approached, his expression grim. We've located Varia. She's barricaded herself in the underground garage with what's left of her forces. Maybe 20 wolves. Maybe more. What's her play? Draven asked. Suicide stand, most likely. She knows she can't escape. So she's going to take as many of us with her as she can. Merritt joined them, his armor dented and bloody. We've sealed all the exits except one. If she runs straight into our ambush. And if she doesn't run, Aveline asked, then we go in and drag her out. Draven looked at the assembled wolves, exhausted, wounded, but still standing, still willing to fight. We will move in 5 minutes, he announced. Kalen, take Alpha Team through the main entrance. Merrick, Beta Team covers the ventilation shafts in case they try to flank. I'll lead the Omega Team straight down the center. He turned to Aveline. You're with me. She nodded. And the boys? Isla asked. They stay here, Draven said. With you. And with a full guard detail. If anything gets past us. It won't, Isla said firmly. I'll protect them with my life. Draven clasped her shoulder. Thank you. He turned back to his sons one last time. Be brave. Be safe. And know that I love you. Riven's jaw trembled. We love you too. Both of you. Selim nodded, adjusting his glasses. Statistically, you have an 84% chance of success. I'll take those odds, Draven said with a faint smile. Theron threw himself into Aveline's arms. Come back, Mom. Please. Always, baby. Always. She kissed his forehead, then reluctantly pulled away. Draven offered her his hand. She took it, and together, they descended into the darkness. The underground garage was a tomb. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting everything in shades of red and shadow. The air smelled of oil, blood, and fear. Draven's team moved in formation, silent, coordinated, lethal. Aveline stayed close to him, her knife ready, every sense on high alert. They reached the central chamber, and there, surrounded by the remnants of her army, stood Varia Vale. She looked terrible. Her armor was cracked. Blood seeped from the wound in her shoulder. Her hair was matted with ash and sweat. But her eyes burned with unbroken defiance. Draventarion, she said, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. Come to finish what your mate started? This ends tonight, Varia, Draven said. Surrender, and I'll make it quick. Quick! Varia laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Where's the poetry in that? There's no poetry in any of this. Just death. Then let's make it memorable. Varia raised her hand, and her wolves attacked. The battle was chaotic. Teeth, claws, silver blades flashing in the dim light. Aveline fought like a woman possessed, her exhaustion forgotten. her pain a distant echo beneath the roar of adrenaline. She moved with Draven, their movements synchronized as if they'd been fighting together for years instead of days. He guarded her left. She covered his right. When he shifted, his massive black wolf tearing through enemies, she protected his flanks with precise, deadly strikes. They were a unit, a force of nature. And one by one, Varia's wolves fell. But Varia herself was a nightmare. She moved like liquid death, her twin blades carving through anyone who got close. Kaelin tried to engage her. She disarmed him in 3 moves and kicked him across the room. Merrick lunged from behind. She spun, driving her blade into his thigh. He dropped, cursing, and then her eyes locked on Aveline. "You," Varia hissed. "This is all your fault. If you just stayed forgotten, none of this would have happened. If you just accepted that your family lost, we wouldn't be here," Aveline shot back. "Lost." Varia's voice rose. "We didn't lose. We were murdered, betrayed, erased, because you tried to steal what wasn't yours. And what about you?" Varia pointed her blade at Aveline. "You stole my revenge. You stole Draven's guilt. You turned my brother into a martyr and me into a monster. You did that yourself." Varia screamed, raw and primal, and charged. Aveline met her head-on. Their blades clashed, sparks flying. Varia was faster, stronger, but Aveline was desperate, and desperation made her dangerous. They fought across the garage, a whirlwind of steel and fury. Aveline's wound tore open, blood soaking through her bandages. But she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Varia kicked her in the chest, sending her sprawling. "You should have stayed hidden," Varia said, standing over her. "You and your bastard children. You should have." A roar shook the entire garage. Draven, still in wolf form, launched himself at Varia with the force of a freight train. He slammed into her, jaws snapping, claws tearing. Varia screamed, driving her blade into his shoulder. Draven yelped but didn't release her. He dragged her to the ground, his massive weight pinning her. "Draven, no," Aveline shouted, scrambling to her feet. "Don't kill her like this." But Draven wasn't listening. His wolf had taken over, consumed by rage and the primal need to protect his mate. His jaws closed around Varia's throat. "Draven!" Aveline screamed again. "Stop!" And somehow, impossibly, her voice cut through the bloodlust. Draven froze. His eyes, wild and golden, found hers. "Don't," Aveline said quietly. "Don't become the monster she thinks you are." For a long moment, nothing moved. Then Draven slowly, reluctantly, released Varia. He shifted back to human form, naked and bloody, breathing hard. Varia gasped for air, her hand clutching her throat. "Why?" she choked out. "Why spare me?" "Because killing you won't bring back your family," Aveline said. "It won't undo the past. It will just create more ghosts. And what would you have me do? Live with the shame of failure? Live with the knowledge that you lost," Draven said coldly. "That you threw everything away for revenge and got nothing." Varia's eyes filled with tears, the first emotion beyond rage Aveline had seen from her. "Then kill me," Varia whispered. "Please. I can't. I can't live like this." Aveline looked at Draven. He shook his head. "No. She'll stand trial before the council. Let them decide her fate. The council will execute me. Probably. Then you're just delaying the inevitable. Maybe. But at least it won't be in my hands." Kaelin appeared, limping but functional. "Sir, we've secured the garage. All hostiles are down or surrendered." "Good. Bind Varia. Silver chains. And get her to the cells." As guards moved to take her, Varia looked at Aveline one last time. "You won," she said quietly. "But at what cost? Your sons saw war tonight. They'll carry that forever." "I know," Aveline said. "But they'll also carry the knowledge that their family fought for them, protected them. I love them enough to risk everything." "Love." Varia laughed bitterly. Such a human concept. "No," Draven said, moving beside Aveline and taking her hand. "It's the most wolf thing there is." Varia said nothing as she was dragged away. And finally, it was over. Dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Aveline sat on the steps of what used to be the safe house, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sun rise. Draven sat beside her, his shoulder bandaged, his body exhausted but whole. Behind them, the boys were sleeping in a makeshift medical tent, Isla watching over them like a protective hawk. "We did it," Aveline said quietly. "We did. She was right, about the boys. They'll remember this. They will. But they'll also remember that we stood together, that we didn't break." Aveline leaned her head against his shoulder. "What happens now? Now, we rebuild. We heal. We move forward. Where? Wherever you want. The main territory. A new safe house. Back to the city. It's your choice." Aveline was quiet for a long moment. "I want them to have a childhood, Draven. A real one. Not constantly looking over their shoulders. Then we'll make sure they do." "Can you promise that?" "No," he said honestly. "But I can promise I'll spend every day trying." She turned to look at him, really look at him. This man who had broken her heart and put it back together. Who had forgotten her and remembered. Who had fought beside her when it mattered most. "I still don't fully trust you," she said. "I know, and I'm still angry about the past. I know that too. But," she took a breath, "I want to try. For them. And maybe for us." Draven's eyes shone with emotion. "That's all I'm asking." He cupped her face gently. "I love you, Aveline. I loved you 6 years ago. I love you now. And I will love you for the rest of my life. Curse or no curse. Broken bond or whole. You are my mate. My Luna. My everything." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Don't make me regret this." "I won't. I swear it." And then he kissed her. Not desperately. Not urgently. Softly. Tenderly. Like a promise. Like a beginning. When they pulled apart, Aveline smiled, really smiled, for the first time in what felt like forever. "So," she said, "what do we tell the boys?" "The truth. That we're a family. Messy, complicated, and still figuring things out. But a family. They'll have questions. Selim will have 1,000 questions." Aveline laughed. "At least." Movement behind them made them turn. Riven stood in the doorway of the tent, his eyes sleepy but alert. "Are you two done being weird?" he asked. Draven grinned. "Define weird." "All the mushy stuff." "Probably not." Riven wrinkled his nose. "Gross." But then he smiled, small and genuine, and walked over to sit between them. Selim and Theron followed moments later, still half asleep, curling up against their parents. And there, in the ruins of a battlefield, as the sun rose on a new day, the Sterling family sat together. Whole. Healing. Home. 6 months later. The house was chaotic. Riven was arguing with Selim about whose turn it was to do the dishes. Theron was trying to convince Draven to let him get a puppy. And Aveline stood in the kitchen, watching it all with a smile. They'd moved to a new home, neutral territory, halfway between Draven's pack lands and the city. A compromise. It was smaller than the penthouse, less fortified than the fortress, but it was theirs. Draven appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Happy. Surprisingly, yes. Only surprisingly? She turned in his arms. "Okay. Very happy." He kissed her forehead. "Good. Because I have something for you." "Draven." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Aveline's breath caught. "Is that?" "Open it." Inside was a ring. Not the one from before. Not the one tied to their original bonding. This was new. Simple. A silver band with 3 small stones, blue, green, and amber. "The boys' birthstones," Draven said, "because you gave me the greatest gift I could ever receive. And I want to spend the rest of my life earning the honor of being their father. And your mate." Aveline's eyes filled with tears. "You're terrible at this." "At what?" "Making me cry." "Is that a yes?" She looked at the ring. At him. At their sons playing in the next room. And she knew. This was where she belonged. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. Draven slipped the ring onto her finger, and she pulled him into a kiss. From the living room, 3 groans echoed. "They're being gross again," Theron announced. "Statistically, we should be used to it by now," Selim said. "Doesn't make it less weird," Riven muttered. Aveline and Draven pulled apart, laughing. "Come here, you 3, Aveline called. The boys tumbled into the kitchen, and their parents pulled them into a group hug. I love you, Aveline said. All of you. So much. We love you too, Mom, they chorused. Draven's voice was thick with emotion. We're a family, and nothing, not curses, not enemies, not anything, will ever change that. And as the sun set on their new home, casting golden light through the windows, the Sterling family stood together. Unbreakable. United. Finally, truly whole. The end.
Thank you for listening to Forgotten Luna. If this story touched your heart, made you believe in second chances, or reminded you that love can survive even the darkest curses, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing your favorite moment, and subscribe for more werewolf romance audiobooks. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more stories of love, redemption, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Until next time, may the moon guide your path.